in 2027.
The answer from European capitals has been as resounding as it is clear. We are in an era of rearmament to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
On Saturday, we also agreed a new £2.2 billion loan for Ukraine, backed not by the British taxpayer, but by the profits from frozen Russian assets. It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sends his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know. I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman. He said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time, and he better not be right. Well, I just think he should be more appreciative, because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us, because as you know, that's right there, that's the border.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. It's coming up to nearly 3 minutes past 6. It's Monday morning. It is August the 4th. The sun is shining. There is a big storm coming on the way. And according to the weather forecasters, the best thing to do is to keep your doors shut. There you go. Best advice I can give you. Has anybody watched The Wizard of Oz? You see what happens, you know, when the hurricane, you know, and the tornado comes, the house goes up like... No, I'm just joking. Anyway, listen, we've got lots to talk about this morning. Never mind Storm Floris, which is going to hit Scotland. If you're in Scotland, obviously, be careful. There's an amber warning out there. I don't think it's going to hit much below sort of the north of England, really, somewhere like Manchester. But we're going to talk this morning with Emma Wolfe, who's here with us. Very good morning to you, Emma. About all the activities at the weekend. On Friday, last time I was here, I told you there was going to be a massive number of protests over the weekend in various different places, whether they be in London, whether they be in Epping, in Essex, whether they be in Manchester, whether they be in Newcastle, whether they be in Birmingham, whether they be in any part of Britain right now, which is pretty much a tinderbox because of these migrant hotels. Lots of very peaceful demonstrations going on. The one outside the Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf in London was punctuated by lots of women wearing pink, doing the conga, being very peaceful, being sort of roughed about a bit by the police. Then, of course, there was the inevitable, you know, gang of hardliners who came in wearing masks, supposedly representing the far right, kicking off. Police in London tried to ban them from ever coming back for 28 days. A whole load of confusion over whether they could even do that legally. All sorts of stories as well around the asylum problem at the moment. There's a couple of charges, so there's a couple of what you might call live cases, so we have to be careful how we talk about them. But there's anger over a police cover-up because the ethnicity of two asylum seekers, two illegal migrants who have raped a 12-year-old girl, have basically been withheld from the public. They said that they shouldn't tell anybody who they were and where they were from. Absolutely outrageous. Meanwhile, there's another story this morning about a Sudanese migrant who's apparently attempted to kidnap a 10-year-old child. I mean, absolutely incredible stuff. You know, there is no doubt in my mind and anybody's mind that's got a brain that this migrant problem is now spiralling out of control, that Keir Starmer hasn't got a clue what to do about it. All they can do is say that we're going to offer £100 million for a crackdown on the migrant business. We're going to hire more border patrols. We're going to get more intelligence coming from Europe. Oh, I know. Here's what we can do. We can stop them putting out messages on social media, so you can get arrested for putting out a message on social media. But if you manage to make your way to Britain, you won't get arrested for illegally entering it. The whole thing is completely off the scale to cock ridiculous. Meanwhile, we're going to have a load more people coming here from Gaza. 300 children are going to be brought here to be operated upon. They'll be allowed to bring their families, they'll be allowed to bring dependents, and you can bet your bottom dollar they won't be leaving, because all they'll have to do is walk before a judge with a human rights lawyer and say, well, we can't go back to Gaza, can we, because obviously it's too dangerous. Meanwhile, Hamas, latest recruitment to the Labour Party. You know, they might as well join up, because Keir Starmer has now given them such kudos that they're thanking him. They're saying that basically Palestinian recognition, all part of what we did on October the 7th. Brilliant. Absolutely marvellous. So many stories to talk about, so much time to do it in. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Emma, very good morning to you. Welcome. Where to begin?
Well,
so much going on. Different front pages this morning. The Times have got universities to lose cash if students claim asylum. Not particularly surprising that loads of students have been coming to this country and staying over the student visa and claiming asylum.
Exactly.
Palestine action plot to swamp the police. This is this terror group who apparently are going to try and overwhelm the police. Front page of the Daily Mail, asbestos kills more troops than the Taliban. This is a national disgrace of how these Ministry of Defence homes where they live are toxic. And then one on the front of the Sun, a racist fan dies in gig plunge. A lot of people said to me last night, I can't believe that the concert went ahead last night. After the night before, a guy literally falls from the top tier of Wembley Stadium, crashes to his death on a concrete slab on the ground, and they just go, yeah, we're really sorry about that. Anyway, the show goes on tonight.
It did. It went on last night.
Yeah.
I don't know how that could have happened on Saturday night. I mean, Wembley has hosted how many thousands of, hundreds of thousands of concerts.
Yeah.
It seems terribly, terribly sad, doesn't it? And it seems to have only come out this morning, that one.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of the rest of the papers, Mike, it's all coming down to this burning tinderbox, whatever you want to call it, issue.
Yeah.
Of migration,
right,
and of what on earth and how the government are going to get a handle on this. I mean, OK, fine, they cannot, and they can just let it carry on like this. And I think we've seen a slightly... Well, I think the weekend was very busy with asylum protests,
yeah,
but I think it's been slightly quieter because of the kind of greyer, wetter weather. But honestly, as things warm up again, I think we're still going to see a lot kicking off in August.
Yes.
And this is happening, as you say, all around the country.
Well, it's all over the place, isn't it?
And it's a very clear picture to me when you look at, say the Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf. Why were people being moved in there? Oh, I think it was Friday or Saturday night at 2 in the morning.
Yeah, it was Friday night into Saturday morning, yeah. A whole load of men getting off a coach.
Yes, in flip-flops and things. I mean, clearly asylum seekers being moved in under cover of darkness.
Yeah.
Yesterday, women who were literally wearing pink.
Yeah.
They were mothers, grandmothers and children wearing pink.
Yeah.
Yes, they were holding England flags. Last time I checked, that wasn't a crime.
Right.
Of course, then you get the right-wing thugs. You get the dodgy ones coming in and wrecking the protest for everybody, and then the police start doing their two-tier thing. But I think the picture is very, very clear that local residents, that mothers, that grandmothers, that women are not feeling safe in these areas, around these areas,
right,
and that is what they are expressing.
And they're being very clear about why they're doing it, and it's not about violence, and it's a very peaceful demonstration. And people are asking questions now as well about what the police are doing there, because the police were moving a lot of the women off the road, saying you can't stand on the road, and deliberately being difficult. We're going to be playing some videos later on through the course of the show this morning about many of them talking to us and saying, look, this is why we're doing it, and saying to the police, look, we're not moving. Yeah. Because we don't want these people here.
Exactly. And I was outside the Thistle Hotel in Clerkenwell, which we've talked about lots, on Saturday, and the police presence there was absolutely huge, keeping the two sides apart. Why? OK, so I'm sure you saw the photographs there of migrants inside the Thistle filming on their phones outside, filming us all, laughing. What were they filming for?
And like blowing kisses and things, right?
Yeah, and more. Yeah, exactly. What are they filming? Are they filming to send back to their mates to say, look at this is what we get in Britain. We're in a hotel and this is what's happening outside. They thought it was absolutely hilarious. I was talking to this older lady. Honestly, Mike, she's lived in the area. She was in tears. A white woman lived in the area. She said she's got all members of race, colour in her family. So it's not about colour. It's not about racism. She said, I'm not racist, but I don't feel safe with my grandchildren sitting in the square. There's an area just by the hotel called King Square, and it's a real white working class, well, actually mixed community, but people have lived there forever. What they do is the flats are around the square, and there's a splash pad where I take my little boy all the time. The little girls now can't go in the splash pad. They can't go in the sandpit. They can't run around in their swimming costume anymore because they are surrounded, and there are groups of young men and they don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And that is the reality of it.
And that is the reality of it.
People are not even anti-migrant. They are just anti these people being plonked down in the middle of their communities.
Yeah. Because they've weaponised it. You know, it's been the government that is to blame here. You know, you might even say you don't blame the people for coming here, but to have them shipped around to all sorts of parts of the country,
in the numbers that they're in, 800, 900,000 a year.
Exactly right.
Of new people in this country, the pressure on everything. And these people were saying to me, we can't afford to live here.
Yeah.
Look at everybody around us.
Right.
New build flats all around these areas, Clerkenwell, in the middle of the city, near the Barbican. People being housed in these areas, big families being housed in these areas, when the rest of us are paying our rent, paying our mortgages.
That's exactly right.
Trying to, you know,
trying to make ends meet, and they're getting free food, they're getting free money to spend, they're getting doctors if they want to see them.
And to say that these men can't work, well, there were hundreds upon hundreds, until the police came in a few months ago, hundreds upon hundreds of Deliveroo bikes, Uber Eats bikes outside this one specific hotel.
Right.
I mean, it's not hard to work out what they're doing.
Let's have a look at the Britannia Hotel, because there's some footage we've got here of a delivery driver attempting to leave. Now, it's not clear whether this guy is staying in the hotel. Doesn't really matter, but there's some demonstrators outside of it blocking him from leaving and just saying you can't leave. We don't want that to happen. And there was obviously instances where there was, you know, food was arriving at the hotel, people were booing because of that. Similarly, again, you have this guy. Then later on, you get an Uber Eats driver gets actually a police escort out of the hotel. Now again, it's not clear whether he is working and delivering to the hotel or living in the hotel and working illegally. But Nick Timothy, the Tory MP, actually put this out and said this is what it's come to. The police are now giving an escort to somebody who's more than likely an illegal worker in this country. So do they even know what the law is? What are they doing?
And there is a lot of protection, around the asylum seekers.
It's now your human right to drive an Uber Eats bike, is it? You know, that's what has to be protected, instead of the people's right actually outside who don't want there to be criminal activity going on around and about where they live.
Exactly. And now we've got pro-Palestine action planning another day, a big day of protest next Saturday.
Yeah.
So this rolls on and on
It does.
Even though they've been banned, there's an appeal about whether or not they are a banned organisation. And they are, you know, coming together. And I just think the government have clearly not got a handle on what is happening.
They clearly don't know what to do.
If they are doing things under cover of darkness, you know, they don't have a policy, they don't have a plan.
No.
They're calling hotels all around the country. Can we move them here? Can we move them there? Last week we were talking about the military bases that they're trying to put back into commission and trying to house asylum seekers in, you know, disused military bases, even though they said they wouldn't do that.
And that's the thing, you know, everything they say they're not going to do, like everything else in this Labour government, they end up doing.
It's dishonest and it's last minute and it's reactive and it's U-turn and it seems panicky. There seems to be no clear direction.
Well, no, I mean, yesterday one of the things that happened outside of the Canary Wharf Hotel was that after the disturbance from, you know, the so-called right-wing thugs, and I've got my doubts as to whether they even are. I don't even know whether they're right-wing thugs or whether they're left-wing thugs pretending to be right-wing thugs, because that's how mad it's now become, right? Many of them had, like, smoke flares and they were, you know, roughing up people. They were not letting people in and out of the hotel. So the police basically said to them and said to everybody, there's now a dispersal order and a ban on anybody protesting here for 28 days, right? And various lawyers and MPs started saying, hang on a minute, you can't ban people from protesting. So the police then, about an hour and a half, 2 hours later, came out with this most ridiculous thing, which, if you can make sense of it, you know, you're a better man than I am. Metropolitan Police said this: we have not banned protests outside the Britannia Hotel, International Hotel. We continue to encourage those exercising their lawful right to protest to do so responsibly. Anyone who crosses the line from lawful protest into criminality can expect to face police action. Which basically says that, yeah, we have actually banned protests, but not for everyone. We've banned it for some people, because apparently the law says you can only ban people under this particular section of the law if you're telling them. So, like, if I tell you, you can't come back tomorrow, or you can't come back for 28 days, that affects you only. It doesn't affect anybody else, so other people can come and protest. So the whole thing is a mixture of a shambles. Yeah. Nobody knows what's going on, you know?
No, absolutely.
Ridiculous.
And what amazes me, I mean, we hear way too much of nonsense from Keir Starmer, but we never, ever, almost never, apart from these pathetic statements about, oh, we'll arrest people if there are more than 80 people on these illegal boats. What, more than 80? So if there's 81, it's illegal. Anyway, we almost never hear from our Home Secretary, who should be in charge of keeping the country safe, along with the Prime Minister.
Well, I mean,
what is she doing? Where is she?
The big news at the weekend is that they're going to crack down on people putting out messages on TikTok and X's social media. So that's illegal, but coming to the country without permission is not.
This is the problem, Mike, and this is the problem with the front page of the Times, this thing about universities. Universities will lose their cash, lose their funding if students claim asylum. You know, these sort of so-called universities where people come and they sign up on a student visa, and it's basically, I mean, you see them around London. They're like a door on Oxford Street, and it'll say International College, University College of Bloomsbury, you know, specialising in this, and you think that's not even a business. No. It's like a Turkish barber, that kind of thing. But this is the problem. You know, universities, crack down on universities, crack down on boats with more than 80 people, crack down, or even digital IDs. These are all kind of performative things. They are not actually taking action.
No,
this thing
they're
about
not stopping
smashing
people
the boats,
from coming.
They need to stop, but also the people who are here process their claims and deport people who are not here legally. What is so hard about this?
Well, you know what they're going to do, though. They're going to process the claims quicker, and then they'll tell them they can't stay, and then they'll appeal, and then they'll stay for another year, because that's what goes on.
And they'll stay another 5 years, and then their families will come over.
Yeah, the one story that really has wound a lot of people up is this story about what's going on in Nuneaton, right? This is Warwickshire police, who basically covered up the backgrounds of 2 Afghan asylum seekers who've been charged in the alleged rape of a 12-year-old girl in Nuneaton itself, right? They believe that unrest would break out like what was seen in Epping, where an Ethiopian asylum seeker staying in a hotel has been charged with trying to kiss a 14-year-old schoolgirl, right? Big piece in the Mail today. Warwickshire police have said they were following national policy in not sharing ethnicity or immigration status. How is that national policy? We live in what we like to think is a free country, right? So therefore we, as the public, deserve to know the ethnicity and the immigration status of anybody who is accused of a crime. Because otherwise they're withholding information from us, which is going to lead to even more people getting even more angry, right? And Chris Philp has weighed into it, saying the police must be open about who is committing these alleged offences and not try to hide it. Otherwise, we risk a repeat of the rape gang scandal, where horrendous crimes were covered up because of the identity of the perpetrators. Why have they not learned?
This is when it leads to accusations of cover-up. Why are we not being told? It is a matter of public record, is it not?
Well, it should be, but if they're concealing it, then it's not an act of public record, and therefore we cannot find out about it, and it will be the same as all the Afghan people who came here under the Afghan resettlement scheme, you know, tens of thousands of them, who we never knew about because the government, and in the first case was the Tories, and then secondly the Labour Party, didn't want us to know. It's outrageous.
It's absolutely outrageous. And this is when we get into people being pushed into conspiracy theories about, you know, cover-ups and who's who.
Well, apparently it's not a conspiracy theory. It's actually going on before your very eyes.
I know, but when you cannot even, when we are not even being told this stuff, when there's two-tier policing, when these decisions are being made based on, oh, we don't want to inflame tensions, or we don't want to incite violence, or whatever.
Yeah, well, too late, I think, for that is the thing.
Because they've created the situation in which people don't feel safe in their communities. And they're being branded as racist.
And it's happening all over the place. There's a story also around this morning, another, I don't think there's a charge yet, but a Sudanese man, an asylum seeker, sorry, there is a charge. So he's been alleged of attempting to kidnap a 10-year-old girl. You know, and I'm sorry if there was one of these cases, that would be bad enough, but there's now dozens of them all over the place.
I cannot tell you the number of mothers I spoke to on Saturday, and I'm just going to say it, who said, I'm not letting my little girls out. The men stand in the flats, they film on their mobile phones. They film the little girls.
Yeah.
I'm not mentioning their ethnicity, but these are the asylum seekers in the asylum hotel. And they and people who've lived there for 40, 50 years, who bring up their families there, the little girls are being watched all day long in playgrounds, in splash pads, in paddling pools. It's just horrific.
It is horrific. And by the way, the phones they're using have been paid for by you and I. So isn't that great? Emma Wolf is here. It's 19 minutes past 6. We've got plenty more to talk about. Loads of you got things to say. Please do let them come to us in a variety of ways. You can text us at 87222. You can find us at talkTV on X. And, of course, you can leave us a voice note. 0344 499 1000.
People are sent in from the left, from Stand Up to Racism, from Antifa, with their masks to agitate people. The migrants have been throwing things out of windows or laughing at people. We had it in Portsmouth just several weeks ago where there was, I think, 3 arrests. It wasn't a protest I was at. However, the migrants were out the window throwing eggs at the protesters, and that's what sparked everything off. So we've got to remember that there is agitators out there that will spark these things, but I need people to remember to stay calm at all times because it takes the story away.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:22. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. It is Monday, the 4th of August. There is a storm coming to parts of the country. The advice is keep your doors closed, apparently. That's what they're telling us. We don't know quite how bad it's going to be, but up in Scotland, the wind's going to be very, very high. A couple of messages for you here. Sarah says this, near Plymouth, considering that Labour ditched the Rwanda plan and that it's so obvious that British people do not want the migrant hotels or to fund them via taxation, how the heck are Labour going to run their next general election campaign? Well, you may well ask. It's quite difficult, isn't it? Mark in Croydon says, morning, Mike. This smash the gangs nonsense and chucking money at it seems to be the same as the US war on drugs. It will fail just like that until you cut off the demand. Remove the hotels and freebies and they will stop coming. It's simple. Supply and demand. I mean, most people can see that that's what you have to do.
Absolutely.
It's not rocket science,
and that's why these men were filming the deal they get. We know about the Albanian kind of adverts where for 12 grand you get a package deal, you get accommodation, you get employment when you're here, all of that. And someone else said to me at the outside the Thistle Hotel, someone said, well, hang on a minute, in France they're camping, and they cross over here and they're put up in hotels.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
and they're looked after, as we saw last week from the footage we had from the
everything you need
from the hotel down in West Sussex in Crawley. You know, absolutely extraordinary stuff. Let's have a quick chat about what's going on in Palestine, because we've got the Sunday Times yesterday saying they're going to fly 300 children from Gaza into Britain to get medical treatment. They're allowed to bring their families with them.
Siblings.
They're allowed to bring dependents and siblings. They're more likely to probably having been treated here than claim for asylum.
They are very unlikely ever to leave.
Yeah.
Can I just
another
suggest,
great move by Keir Starmer.
This was really... Can I suggest that very sick children, if we are compassionate enough, and if only we weren't overwhelmed with illegal migrants, then we could do more of this kind of humanitarian thing. May I suggest that if they bring sick children over here, that they bring a group of children with medical aid, with a guardian to look after them, they are treated and then they're returned to their families. Why do they need to bring their families, siblings and dependents?
Well, because
that's when you get the problem.
It's a backdoor method of bringing more asylum seekers into Britain.
Of course it is.
And it's being run by people who are, you know, sympathetic, shall we say, to the Palestinian state. And it's another Keir Starmer nonsense, right? Professor Alan Mendoza, a man we know well from the Henry Jackson Society, has written a piece in the Mail today. Proof Starmer has given terrorists an incentive to inflict even more agony. Because, of course, one of the things that Keir Starmer's announcement last week has done has totally empowered Hamas, who are now refusing to stop fighting Israel until they are given their own state, including having Jerusalem as their capital.
Yes, and they are talking about his offer. Thank you, exactly. They are talking about this offer of Palestinian statehood as one of the fruits of October the 7th.
Exactly.
Did Keir Starmer not even talk this through with people?
He clearly doesn't have any ability to do that. It's not like anybody sits there and says this might happen as a result of what you're doing. Right?
But it's not even that complicated.
No.
It's very, very clear. Not even an own goal. I don't know what the word is. And we found out within hours or within days that it flouted international law, that it wasn't legally watertight, which for Keir Starmer is pretty appalling.
And it won't mean anything.
It won't mean anything, but also it's totally, as you say, completely empowers Hamas.
Yeah, well, let's have a look at the announcement as he made it last week.
I've always said that we will recognise a Palestinian state as a contribution to a proper peace process at the moment of maximum impact for the two-state solution. With that solution now under threat, This is the moment to act. So today, as part of this process towards peace, I can confirm the UK will recognise the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September, unless the Israeli government takes substantive steps to end the appalling situation in Gaza, agree to a ceasefire, and commit to a long-term sustainable peace, reviving the prospect of a two-state solution.
Yeah, so clever Keir Starmer manages to completely kibosh the whole situation, because not only does he say he's going to recognise Palestine, he says he's only going to recognise it if Israel doesn't do some things. So if Israel does the things he wants them to do, then he won't recognise them. So what does he want to do? Meanwhile, what's happened over the weekend since that happened, some horrible images have been published by the Hamas sort of propaganda arm of an Israeli hostage who looks emaciated, looks as if he's been starved, looks as if he's been forced not to eat, digging his own grave in a tunnel. His name is Eviatar David. It looks emaciated, digging in a tunnel, and they're sending this out because everyone says they've been empowered by Keir Starmer offering them statehood.
And how many times has one watched
absolute idiot
that announcement from Keir Starmer, and you're literally, I was yelling at the screen, like, what about Hamas? What about the hostages?
Yeah.
He says nothing.
I know. It is quite exextraordinary. And he does it in that kind of ridiculously clipped voice where he thinks he's
being an international statesman. Yeah, I mean, talk about bungling, diplomacy, negotiation.
Yeah.
Every kind of prime ministership you could absolutely imagine, he manages to get this wrong.
Yeah, he really does.
Spectacular, really.
And here's his tweet from yesterday, because it's the Home Office who put this out. Under new laws, it will be a criminal offence to promote small boat crossings on social media. Well, it's already illegal to have the small boat crossings. That includes migrants paid by smuggling gangs to film their journey and encourage others to join them. Step by step, we will dismantle the business model behind immigration crime. Well, you won't, actually. And then here's what Starmer says on top of it. For too long, criminal people smuggling gangs have got away with using social media to sell the false promise of safe passage to the UK. I'm putting an end to it. Well, you're not, are you? You're not putting an end to it. 48,678 is the migrant tracker this morning from the year that Starmer's been in. For this year, from the beginning of January, 25,436.
Yeah, we're on track to be the highest year ever. This nonsense. Yes, we know these adverts are going out on TikTok. It's like he's read a few of the papers and thought, OK, we'll do that. It's another one of these tinkering around the edges thing, like cracking down on universities, that is not having any action. Do you think that illegal migrants who are making hundreds of thousands of pounds by shipping people over are going to be terrified and go, oh, OK, it's illegal, I won't put my ads on TikTok?
I know.
These are deals that are in Albania. This is how you do it. You give this guy your 12 grand, whatever it is. That's where he needs to be taking action.
Yes. And also, they already know they don't need a new law if they want to go after these people.
It's illegal.
It's not difficult to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was looking at some videos yesterday, which happen to be freely available on social media, of like Albanian drug gangs, Albanian people smuggling gangs having parties celebrating. There was one where they were going, "This guy's the greatest people smuggler in the world." You know. Very clearly, you can see who he is.
Yeah.
You can see who's filmed it. You can see where they are.
Yeah.
You know, these are not things that are difficult to stop if you want to stop them. But,
or you start here and you say to everybody who's arrived, who brought you over here?
Yeah.
If you want to stay, you give us that information. You work backwards.
Yeah.
There are many, many ways of doing this.
You would think so. Meanwhile, did you see the other story yesterday about Morgan McSweeney's family over in Ireland, who have apparently been, or his father, who's an accountant, has been working for a company
making quite a lot of money,
millions and millions of pounds, for housing asylum seekers in Ireland.
And this is Morgan McSweeney, who is
the so-called genius,
right-hand man. This isn't just someone in the civil service. This is his father, who's making millions out of the asylum racket.
I know. It is. It
really is shocking.
Absolutely extraordinary. Meanwhile, for those of you who don't worry about civil servants, there's a story that I spotted yesterday. The Mail have picked it up this morning. The Marsham Street HQ of the Home Office in Westminster, you can find a beauty salon, which is only for the people who work there, OK? Parlour opens during working hours, offers a Brazilian wax for 25 quid, spray tans for 24.50, and massages for 18 quid, far cheaper than nearby salons in the rest of London.
Well,
it's a perk, apparently.
Exactly. I can tell you, well, what are civil servants doing in working hours, by the way, getting their Brazilian wax? This is a lot cheaper than the rest of London, I can tell you that on those rates. Brazilian wax in spray tans and, as you say, massages. But also, in another part of the papers, and I think it was the Times, they're also talking about how the really, really damaging and the really tough conditions for the health and beauty industry in this country.
Right.
Small salons, which, OK, we might want all our young teenage girls to be going into academia, but actually loads of them are going and becoming hair technicians and nail technicians and all that. It's a real trade for young women.
It's a good job for young women.
It's a great job, it's great training. Loads of people used to work in hair salons, you know, tidying up, cleaning up, whatever. As their training. It's a freelance job. They got really hit in the pandemic, and now guess what? They've been hit massively by the hike in taxes on small businesses. It's a very employment-heavy industry. You need a lot of people if you're running a salon. You need a lot of people on the ground. And the hike in national insurance is causing loads of hair and beauty salons to close down. So the idea that the civil servants are getting their
I know.
free...
It's extraordinary, isn't it?
You know,
it's almost as though there's nothing that they can get right. You know, everything they touch turns to dust. It's rubbish.
Well, that's a polite way of putting it.
Yeah, it is. I'm afraid I have to be polite. Graham in Wrexham says, morning, Mike. I've had enough of Starmer's bleeding so-called good ideas to fix the migrant problem. He's run out of time and we don't believe him. He's useless. Get him out and get someone in who will sort it out for good. It is now beyond a joke. It really does feel like that. This one from WA, they're not asylum seekers. Stop calling them asylum seekers. They are illegal migrants. Well, some of them actually are asylum seekers, and that's the difference. Because if you come here legally, technically speaking, on a student visa or on a work visa, and you then overstay that, you are an asylum seeker. That's what you are. You might say that at that point you go from being a legal migrant to an illegal migrant, but it's not quite as straightforward as that, I'm afraid. But certainly there's no doubt that all the people coming here on small boats are indeed illegal migrants.
Indeed.
And in fact, the small boats isn't really accurate either, because they're rather large boats now.
And also, it's not just boats. As we know, there are cars, there are lorries, there are all sorts of other ways that people are coming in.
Absolutely right. Let's get a voice note from Liam.
Morning, Mike. Liam from Kent. From watching some of the protests over the weekend on YouTube, I found that, you know, these really peaceful far left people, you know, the anti-racists and this, that and the other, funny, really, really funny, are they? All cover their faces up. They all had some lots of signs with some of them had some pretty nasty things written on them. A lot of them, though, obviously, as we all know, had exactly the same sign. And then all these supposed far-righters, no face coverings, lots of women and children, nice and peaceful. It's funny how the mainstream media perceive everything, isn't it? But thanks to you guys at Talk, we all know the truth. Have a great show, Mike.
Liam, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, it is really, really utterly disgraceful mess that this country has found itself in, and this government has made it a whole hell of a lot worse than it was under the Tories, no question.
Of course, and look, it would be dishonest to pretend that this is just of the last 10 months, 12, well, more than 12 months now, so the last year and a half's making. We know that policy for the last 14 years and before, we're not just pretending that it's all on Keir Starmer, but people say over the last year, over the last 6 months... It has got a lot worse. It has got significantly worse. That is their experience. That is their lived experience.
Yeah. That's
you
entirely
can keep
correct.
telling people that they're racist when they're not.
Well, because there's a lot more people here now than there were even a year ago.
But significantly more people.
Yeah.
Where are they meant to be absorbed? And obviously they are going into towns. They're being put in towns and cities. And that is causing massive, massive pressure.
Yeah, and it's not just in places like, you know, London, Manchester, Leeds, Newcastle, where you would expect there to be kind of, you know, what you might call a kind of boiling pot of tension. It's in smaller towns like Nuneaton, you know, where there's now, you know, some people who are being alleged to have raped a 12-year-old girl. You know, in other parts of Britain where an asylum seeker stroke illegal migrant is trying to kidnap a 10-year-old. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's mad. It's 6:35. We'll have loads more for you coming up after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:37. I'm Mike Graham. This, of course, is the home of common sense, here with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Everyone's here with me as well. Morning, Mike. Serious question. Please tell me, who is going to pay for all these migrants when we, the taxpayers, stop paying? Genuine question, says Nan in Wales. Well, that is a very good question. Well, of course, the government will claim that they've got the money to pay for it, even though, actually, it's our money. Because they'll say, oh, the Home Office will give you £100 million. It's all government money, which is all basically taxpayers' money.
No, but remember, there's no money, but there is money for asylum seekers, there is money for foreign aid, and there is money to send billions abroad to Ukraine and places like that.
Yeah, oh yeah.
There is money, but not for British people at all. Not for our school system, not for our healthcare system, or any of that. And genuinely, Mike, we are trying to move on, but people are not. This is the thing. This is
the biggest story right now.
It is the biggest anger.
Yeah.
When you talk to people, friends, colleagues, people in the media, people not in the media, this is what people are actually talking about.
Yeah, of course.
The whole time now they are talking about the state of Britain. And what people always say to me is, what is it, okay, maybe we can't get him out, but what state is the country going to be in if this government leaps on?
He will not last.
Well, but you keep saying that, and I want to believe you. I desperately want to believe you, but I think that, we see him getting through crisis after crisis, avoiding lie after lie after lie.
But he's not really, because he's now the most hated Prime Minister in the country. He's the most unsuccessful Prime Minister in the country. The country is going down the
And who replaces him?
Economically. It doesn't really matter. Anybody better than him. Anyone. Honestly. A stone would be better than him.
Angela Rayner better than Keir Starmer?
Yeah, I would think that would be the end of the Labour government. And that's what I'm looking forward to. That's the only thing I can look forward to. Meanwhile, let's talk about somebody to take our minds off it. Prince Andrew, front page of the Times, driving in Windsor, which is the only place he ever gets to drive. He's like, imagine being Prince Andrew. It's like, you're not allowed to go anywhere.
You really can't go anywhere.
You can just drive around
You've got
Windsor,
to look shifty.
Drive around Windsor Great Park.
Yeah. In your Range Rover, looking really shifty and guilty and hated.
And there's a new book out about him, which is being serialised in the Daily Mail. Over the weekend, I was reading about how he'd called some poor hapless worker an effing imbecile because he refused, or because he referred to the Queen Mother as the Queen Mother instead of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. I mean, what's wrong with the bloke?
Telling people at Ascot, do you know who I am? When they asked to see a perfectly, normal request to see a security pass.
Yes.
Chattering to people at dinner about whether women are wearing knickers or not. I mean, this guy sounds like an absolute... This is all from the biographies, I should say. This is all from the Andrew Lowney biography. They're having lots of fun with serialising this. Andrew Lowney,
And it talks about, in the Mail today, how Andrew acquired his secret millions. After being told he had no future in the Royal Mail, he was made a UK trade envoy, which I remember. And I remember people saying he was actually quite successful at that because people quite liked him going to their country and sort of glad-handing and hanging out with them, Charles tried to block it, but now a new book by an acclaimed historian says he used the role to boost his own wealth and befriend despots, oligarchs and even an arms dealer.
Yeah, and he used his connections, his pitch to palace business. There seems to be a very large sum, nearly £1 million, questioned over whether this was a present for Princess Beatrice's wedding. All sorts of questions swirling around how this lifestyle is funded.
And then, of course, it was only a few months back, it might have been back end of last year, but there's the story about the Chinese envoy who he kind of managed to introduce into Parliament and introduce to various MPs and dignitaries who he was basically being paid off by.
Exactly, and in the background we can't forget the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, which is very much not in the background, but is absolutely causing him and everyone around him and many people in America and here as well lots of headaches and fears and
anxiety. Meanwhile, page 5 of the Daily Mail, Prince Harry last night denied claims he had a physical fight with his uncle Prince Andrew. Because that book says that they were punches thrown when the Duke of York has apparently said something about him behind his back.
Yeah, and then apparently resulted in a bloody nose for Andrew, which I think we can all get behind.
Yeah, I suppose so. Well, I don't know who you would cheer on in that particular fight. I mean, I think they'd both sort of, end up punching each other out.
And I think that then Prince Andrew has been rather rude about Harry's wife. And by the way, it's the Duchess of Sussex's birthday today.
Oh, is it?
So happy birthday, Meghan. She's 44 today.
Right. Well, can we not call her the Duchess of Sussex, though? Because I believe that title should be rescinded, given that...
I believe it should be, yeah. Duchess of Jam.
Yeah, Duchess of Jam. Sarah near Plymouth says this: hotels, phones, money, crazy golf lessons, all funded by the British taxpayer. I'm surprised that the asylum seekers, and she puts that in inverted commas, need boats. Surely they can just walk on water. Yeah, you might well say. Here's one from somebody who says, I'm a taxi driver in New York who has to run these asylum seekers around. I ended up kicking one out of my taxi because of the way he spoke to me. I asked, he asking if I had kids. I said it's not relevant. And then what really got me was, you may have your king, but we now have your country. I stopped and told him to get out of my taxi. These people from the hotel get free taxis up to Newcastle, £200, to Sheffield, £150, all paid by us. It isn't just the cost of the hotels, it is also the cost of the taxis. I want to leave this country for the safety of my family and children.
That is absolutely shocking. I mean, not only the cost of the taxis, but the way that he spoke to him and said, we have your country.
Well, this is the change, I think, that people have noticed as well. A lot of these people coming now are quite arrogant. They know that they can get away with murder.
That's why I mentioned the filming on the mobile phones, because there's a sense of laughing at British people who are saying, this isn't fair, this is not a level playing field. But also, there's not just the cost of taxis and all of that when they arrive. There's everything around it, all the translation services, all the kind of trying to help people speak English, trying to get them back into work. You know, we know about the kind of, free massages, free this and that. But everything about trying to get these people settled, it's a huge, huge financial burden
and
on
also
the
now that they're being moved into homes as opposed to hotels, which is also causing different types of problems as well, which is why they had the big process of Waterlooville last week, because they found out that there was a whole building block which was new builds, flats worth 250,000 quid, occupied by illegal migrants.
And same in London.
Incredible.
And there are families who are not being rehoused, who maybe started out in a one-bedroom flat, now have 4 children, British families who've lived here all their lives, who don't have enough rooms for their children.
No, exactly right. And a waiting list as long as your arm. Let's get a voice note from Mark.
Hi, Mike. It's Mark in Durham. Just wondering, these illegals going out on the scooters, delivering pizzas and that, how can you get insurance if you're here illegally? And getting a police escort? Come on. No. Something needs doing. All right, keep up the good work. Cheers.
Yeah, absolutely right. And let's play this clip we've got here. This is from Isabel Oakeshott, who managed to acquire this over the course of the weekend. This is from the Britannia Hotel protest in Canary Wharf yesterday.
And what do you say to Keir Starmer and the Labour government?
Waste. He's ruined this country. Ruined this country. Nobody in England likes Keir Starmer.
And that is not a truer word said in jest. Well, we've got a longer version of that as well, which we'll play you in a little while. But coming up, we're going to tell you about something even more outrageous. They found this giant rat. And when you see the picture, and it's early in the morning, we're going to do it coming up next. Giant rat, 22 feet long. I'm trying to work out what that would be. I think it's about that long, isn't it?
Isn't that
22 feet? It's a couple of. I'm thinking of a 12-inch ruler and another 12-inch ruler. It's about that, right?
22 feet.
Yeah.
Isn't that? Do you mean 22 feet?
No, I mean 22 inches.
22 inches.
Yeah.
22 feet. I mean, that's
the roof.
Sorry, I'm very confused here.
Yeah, there it is. There. That's the guy holding.
That is absolutely disgusting. I couldn't look at these photographs.
Yeah, 22. Yeah, sorry, not 22.
Oh my God, it's lying in a plastic bag. It's curled up like
it looks
a little
like a dog,
hedgehog or a dog.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's absolutely
huge.
vast, but that's not 22 feet.
No, sorry, you're quite right. Thank you for correcting me. I mean, I'm allowed to make one mistake. 6:45 in the morning.
Yeah.
But also worse than that, right? We've got some maniacs in London who want to reintroduce storks, right? Which are also they're 3 feet tall, which is about that. Into London. Right?
Absolutely
what are they thinking? They're probably rewilding of London. We'll tell you more about that coming up next.
when you reflect upon this, the main question to ask is, do protests actually work? And the answer is yes. So I would take the key example of the suffragettes movement, for example, early 1900s, which started off as small-scale protests and led to great change for women and women's rights.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to very nearly 10 minutes to 7. And Wolf is here with us. We're talking about a great many things, including the discovery of this giant rat, which I must confess and must correct is not 22 feet long, but it's nearly 2 feet long, which is pretty big for a rat. It's got to be said. I mean, that's the size of a reasonably good-sized dog.
Where was it actually found?
Redcar, I believe.
No, but in someone's house, in the street.
Yeah.
It looks like, I don't want to look at the photograph there, but it looks like in someone's house or in someone's kitchen or inside their wall.
Well, we've been covering this bin strike in Birmingham, and there the rats have been getting bigger and bigger and bigger. There's so much rubbish on the street. It's basically, it captured a home in the north of England, Redcar, Cleveland, by a pest controller. Conservative councils have blamed the Labour-run council for the supersized pet as they no longer handle domestic rat infestations.
And
they expect residents to pay for it themselves.
But when you hear like a little scratching, when people talk, oh, I think I've got mice, or I think I've got a rat, and you can hear it scratching behind the sideboard, behind the sort of skirting board. Right. Can you imagine the noise this thing must have been making somewhere in someone's property?
This thing's not behind the skirting board, it's in the kitchen making lunch. I mean, that's how big it is. It's unbelievable.
It's literally on your sofa watching TV.
There's a picture of it, thought to be Britain's biggest rat, captured in a house in Normanby. And I've never seen anything like it. It looks about the size of a beaver or something.
It's the size of it. I mean, it's larger than a newborn baby. It's absolutely huge, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know how much it would weigh.
But I mean, someone must have called in pest control and said, I think I need you quite urgently. Yeah. There's a massive rat in my kitchen.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even know how you'd catch something like that.
That is just, well, they put it in a big
I suppose it's a big enough, no, but I suppose you'd have to sedate it first, wouldn't you? You have a dart gun or something?
But it's like a dog, I suppose. Well, what would you do? You just corner them in the kitchen and grab them?
Oh, good luck with that. What, you want to corner a 2-foot-long rat and try and catch it with your bare hands? I don't think so. You just throw a rat net over it or something? I don't know what you would do.
I wouldn't go anywhere near it, actually. No. I wouldn't even go into the property or into the town.
That is shocking. Absolutely
really
shocking.
Huge.
Meanwhile, the more ridiculous story, actually, white storks could return to London in a new rewilding project, which could get the go-ahead in the next couple of weeks. Apparently, they vanished in the 15th century due to hunting and habitat loss, but the white stork has been reintroduced in southern England, apparently. Lots of sightings. I haven't seen a stork for a while.
I haven't.
That's 3 feet tall.
Right.
So that's about that.
Right, look, well, it's all for, like, wild spaces within cities and, nice open parks and all of that. But there's a reason why London is a city rewilding.
Yeah.
Surely these storks, these massive storks, and they are, I mean, the wingspan is absolutely vast as well.
Huge.
I'm just worried with all the food and all the rubbish all over the streets, all the delivery food that's just left, and then no bins collected, really, in most cities. I am worried they're going to get very, very big and possibly band together with the rats and take over. It's just crazy.
Well, I mean,
storks are big.
They've also got very long beaks, right?
Yeah.
And if they decide to start attacking you, you haven't got much defence against them.
And storks are the ones that bring, in the apocryphal kind of tales, they bring the babies. So they've got the long stalk and then the baby. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, these are the same crazy people that wanted to reintroduce wolves into Scotland, right? Which really doesn't sound like a good idea to me.
Not a good idea.
Packs of wolves roaming the glens, I don't think that's what you want. A couple of other stories to look at. Trains cancelled because it's too dry. You know, this is my favourite story of the day, really. About
it really is ridiculous.
Broken Britain. This is South West Trains, I think.
Yep.
Who basically said it's been a very, very dry spell, and so somehow that makes the trains incapable of running.
Anything. Wet leaves on the line, dry weather, really wet weather,
no drivers, snow.
No drivers, of course. What are their other... Oh, wind. I mean, if it was to do with the storm, one would understand that it's not safe or whatever. But I think the too dry one is a bit rich. It hasn't
really
actually been that hot for the last few days.
Yeah.
Does it affect the tracks? Is it to do with the tracks?
They're saying they forced them to halve the number of trains that run from London Waterloo to Exeter St David's from a week from now. So it's nothing to do with even how it's been. It's to do with
they're planning ahead.
So they're planning ahead.
They're getting their excuses in early.
They're saying dry conditions have forced a speed limit between Gillingham, Dorset and Axminster, Devon, because it's all dried out and the clay soil embankments that support the railways have all kind of, withered away.
But it hasn't been an actual drought. I mean, we did have a couple of heatwave spells.
Well, did you see the rain yesterday?
Did you see the rain last night?
Yeah.
I mean, hasn't that moistened up the earth a bit?
You would think. Most of the route west of Salisbury is made of single track with only a small number of places for trains travelling in opposite directions to pass each other. Track levels have been disturbed. Our trains cannot travel safely at their normal speeds.
In other words, we haven't been maintaining the infrastructure. We haven't been maintaining the network and the tracks as it should be. We haven't been looking at the embankment that, guess what, the railway tracks go over. It's a lovely journey, that, actually, isn't it, down to Exeter?
It is lovely. Apparently now you're going to be doing it a lot slower.
Well, yeah, you get more time to look at the view. We haven't been basically doing... It's a bit like the airport story from last week.
Yeah.
They don't check their systems.
They still haven't told us what that was about, have they? I mean, they just said it was a technical error, which may have had something to do with the radar, but they haven't actually said specifically what it was.
No, but some cyber experts are saying that actually that was quite dodgy, that there was more to that than meets the eye. That a tech failure wasn't...
Well, according to Heidi Alexander, the Secretary of State for Transport, she said it was not in any way related to any kind of cyber attack.
Of course she said that.
Well, wouldn't it be better if it was, though?
Yeah.
I mean,
then at least they could blame them.
From the government's point of view, because then you can blame some kind of foreign actor.
They could blame all of us. Keep us in our houses for another 5 years.
And then say, be very careful. Don't want to, people are trying to hack into...
Don't fly abroad.
Yeah, exactly.
But you can't fly abroad anyway, because they're putting... how much are they putting on our... Net Zero is going to add, I think, £50 to the average cost of a... To the average cost of a holiday. Flights for them, but not for us.
Yes.
Holidays for, travel abroad for all of the politicians, all of the celebrities, but not for normal folk who want one holiday a year.
Right. If you can manage to do it. I mean, a couple of stories I suppose we should mention on the front page that we haven't got to yet. Front page of the Mail, asbestos killed 9 times more military veterans than there were British victims of the Taliban during the Afghan campaign. This is because of asbestos, apparently, which is inside lots of MOD homes. Yeah. It's an unusual story to go with today, but it's one of their campaigns. Over the past 9 years, since a military mesothelioma compensation scheme was introduced, Ministry of Defence figures show there have been 803 payouts totalling £112.5 million.
Isn't it astonishing to think back to that time when they genuinely thought that putting asbestos into people's homes, into school buildings, into hospital ceilings, into walls was safe?
Yeah.
It really is.
And again, just so that you know, the reason that these things happen is because the government took advice from people who supposedly were experts in what they were doing, but it turns out they weren't really. This is one from Lord Neil Kinnock on the back of handing over VAT to private schools.
And by the way, 50 independent schools have already closed.
So now Kinnock says that Rachel Reeves should start charging VAT on private health schemes. Brilliant.
Do they realise people who go private, often they've saved up for it.
Yeah.
Often they're completely desperate and they need a hip replacement because they're living in pain.
And they can't
they're on
get
a
an
3-year
appointment.
waiting list.
Yeah, exactly.
Often that's their life savings. It's an old person. Often they are, and anyone who goes private is relieving the pressure on our public health services, relieving pressure on the NHS. So guess what? Let's make it more expensive for them.
I know.
Because anyone with money, anyone who goes private for anything, for healthcare or schooling, must be filthy rich.
Yeah.
It's so...
It is.
Such
Politics
nasty class warfare.
It is. Politics of envy.
Absolutely.
Again, couple of quick sacking stories for you. We've got about 2 minutes left. A teacher dismissed after internal investigation found that his online post had the potential to bring Preston College into disrepute. Guess why? Because he accused some two-tier justice in the Lucy Connolly case. He didn't even say that what she'd done was right. What he said was the way that she was treated was wrong. She should not have been jailed. He's now been dismissed after an internal investigation prompted by a complaint from a Muslim representative of the National Education Union.
So basically, schools cannot be a place to discuss issues of our day, social issues, discussing, maybe talking, you know, making a comment on the fact that...
So he was branded Islamophobic, right? Now, nothing that Lucy Connolly said was Islamophobic. No. She talked about migrants. She didn't talk about Muslim migrants. No. She just talked about migrants. So, you know, that's mad. And then there's a second story of somebody, a prison officer being sacked because he refused, basically, to call male-born inmates she.
Yeah, and there is also another story...
That would be blokes, in other words.
...in the papers of a nurse who was completely hung out to dry by her union and by the hospital for misgendering somebody. It's a really, really kind of worrying direction that we're heading in, this kind of woke, two-tier justice that we have in our society.
This is another one up in Scotland, in Kirkcaldy, in the Sheriff's Court up there. He said he was shocked to be dismissed from his job even before starting it. He's now taking the company to an employment tribunal on the grounds of unlawful discrimination and harassment for his beliefs. He says, I'm just a normal working class person who's never been in trouble with the law before. I've not got a criminal record. I've lived a good life. I'm prepared to go and fight and die for my country. He's an ex-serviceman. And then I've come back here and been told that there's certain things you can't think or say.
You can't think or say.
Like, you can't call somebody who is clearly a man, who was born a man, he doesn't want to call him she.
Well, I think that sacking must be illegal because of the High Court ruling.
You would have thought so.
A few months ago.
You would have thought so.
Claimed that a woman was a woman and a man was a man.
I know. Unbelievable stuff. Anyway, so much news. We didn't get to all of it. We'll try and get to all of it as we go through the rest of the next 3 hours. And we'll thank you very much indeed. See you again soon. Keep your messages coming. We've got loads of voice notes coming in. We will get to all of them. You can call us, of course, 0344 499 1000. Coming next, in the next hour, Sarah Pochin's here, MP for Runcorn for Reform. This is Talk.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay!
8722, start your message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why?
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Oh, no, I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so much to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Come on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what... There's no.
I think David Lammy would be the person I'd want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there?
Hey, it worked.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 7. I'm Mike Graham, and we are here. It's Monday, the 4th of August, of course, the first Monday of this month, and already we are deep into the dark stuff, it has to be said. We've been talking about a lot of migrant hotel protests over the weekend. There was a big march up in Manchester as well, organised by Britain First. Hundreds and hundreds of people marching, waving Union flags and wearing England banners and England shirts and all sorts of things. You know, depending on which station you watch, depending on which TV organisation you decide to look at, you will either be told that they're far-right nutters or they are freedom fighters, somewhere between the two, of course. What you've got in all sorts of places, including in London, in Manchester, up in Newcastle over the weekend, in Essex as well, of course, more Epping protests going on. Lots of very, very peaceful people just saying we've had enough. We don't want to have to deal with this menace anymore of foreign men, young men coming into our communities and causing problems, committing crimes and making us all feel very, very uneasy. Something has changed in this country over the past few months. We've now got more than 25,000 people who have come here illegally just since the beginning of this year alone. Under the Keir Starmer regiment, 25,436 there. Let's get a voice note from James, which was sent actually about half an hour ago.
Morning, Mike. I've had enough. I have had enough. It was funny at the start. It was funny. You know, I've had a good laugh watching you in the mornings, and, you know, we've all laughed about it, but I have had enough now. He has got to go. He has to go. It's absolutely horrible. And when his voice is getting worse as well. You could even play a game of what did I just say? It's horrible. It's horrible. And it's only 6:30 on a Monday. Oh, keep up the good work, Mike.
James, I feel your pain, man. I know, it's absolutely dreadful, isn't it? You can't believe it. You know, this is why I have decided at this time to make this announcement. You know, not only is he screwing up this country, he's now screwing up the Middle East, Starmer, because he makes a promise last week to give a Palestinian statehood to people in Palestine. He's now decided he's going to fly a load of sick children from Gaza, as we said in the last hour. All well and good if you want to be humanitarian country of the world or something like that. But we've already got way too many people here. You know, we've already got way too many people coming to this country from so many other countries all over the world that we can't afford to bring in any more. And don't worry, of course, it won't just be the Palestinian children that are coming. They'll be bringing their relatives with them, their siblings, their aunties, their uncles, their parents, all of the people that, of course, want to move to Britain and make a new life here. So I wonder how many of the 300... when they come here, when they get treated, will be staying. Well, you can bet your bottom dollar it'll be all of them, won't it? 0344 499 1000. Coming up, Sarah Pochin joins me. She's the Reform MP, of course, for Runcorn and Helsby. We'll take her view on what's been going on and this ridiculous cover-up as well in Nuneaton. This is Morning Glory. Let's get this voice note from Kitty.
Good morning, Mike and team. Kitty from Kent here. I know Emma said we could bring the Gazan kids over with their guardians instead of their entire family and extended family, but quite frankly, I don't want them here. It's a shame if kids are unwell, but Britain is not here to fix the world. I want to see British children and British elderly and British veterans being fixed by the NHS. It's not an international health service. Why are we even considering having children come over here?
Yeah, I mean, under the circumstances, it doesn't seem like a very good idea, does it? I mean, I was reading a piece last night from somebody who said, you know, the Palestinian population is one of the most radicalised populations in the entire world. You know, a very large percentage of them are in support of Hamas. A very large percentage of them are in support of what happened on October the 7th. You know, you really want to bring hundreds more people into this country when we've already got absolutely hundreds of thousands of illegal migrants living here and more than hundreds of thousands of legal migrants living here. It is absolutely ridiculous. We are at a tipping point, I think. Let's talk to Sarah Pochin, Runcorn and Helsby MP for Reform. Sarah, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Lovely to be here as always.
Good to see you. I mean, it's hard to imagine how quickly Britain has sort of somehow descended into this morass of madness. You know, I was watching over the weekend, various different protests. There's one in Canary Wharf in London outside the Britannia Hotel where the police seem to think they can take the law into their own hands and start banning protests. And when a whole bunch of ordinary women, mostly wearing pink, are actually having a very peaceful, you know, almost vigil outside. You've got another one going on in Clerkenwell, slightly further north in London. You've got another one in Newcastle. There's a big march in Manchester. You know, people are at the end of their tether here, aren't they?
They absolutely are. And do you know what? Your last caller, Kitty, I think reflects the views of so many people now. The Labour government are going to position people like me as being uncaring when I say, look, these Gazan children coming over, yes, you know, I'm a mother. I feel sorry about the fact that children may need treatment. But the fact is we are not an international NHS, as your last caller said. And they are bringing their families and endless relatives and siblings. It's just another backdoor way into the UK. Right. Why are we taking these children? And can I just say, those protests, and you pointed out the you know, many ladies there protesting very peacefully, they are protesting about the safety of their children. Why are we why is this government not putting our children first? And yet here we are. What happens when these Gazan children come in? Does everybody on the NHS waiting list then get pushed down the list again? Do they go straight into the hospital beds that we know aren't there and aren't free? So what are we doing? So in the same way, they're emptying accommodation of veterans, of people that, my residents that need to be on housing lists, being moved around for immigrants. Are we now going to move out patients from our wards in order to put Gazan children in there? Well, I'm sorry, Mike. I'm not surprised at the protests up and down the country. People need to be heard.
Well, they do. And I mean, it's the state of our NHS really as well. It's laughable to suggest that we can now import some patients from another country. I'm reading a piece in the Mail this morning which tells me that a power cut, at Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital forced surgeons to do an operation using the torches on their mobile phones. I mean, it's the state the NHS is in. They treat 76,000 youngsters a year. It's been blighted by power outages, water leaks, issues with air filtration systems, and they're having to operate using their phone lights. I mean, that's where we are. And now we think, because Keir Starmer is so out of touch with ordinary people in this country, that he seems to think he's some great statesman organising, you know, the world. And as I said earlier, he's not only screwed up Britain, he's now screwing up the Middle East. He's empowering Hamas. Hamas are now saying, we're not going to take any kind of lessons in justice from Israel, and we will not stop fighting unless we get given a state with Jerusalem as the capital. It's insane.
It is insane, and I always remember from growing up, one of the things that Margaret Thatcher always said was never, ever give in to terrorists. And here we are, Keir Starmer giving in to terrorists. And Hamas are laughing all the way to their two-state solution. But we know that Hamas will not stop at that. They are a terrorist organisation. They will carry on terrorising that particular area of the world. But not only that, I fear that they will be terrorising our own shores before long, because we have no idea who's arriving on these boats. And I'll tell you what sickened me over the weekend was seeing a picture, or a video, I think it was, of some of these migrants that have been shipped into that hotel in Canary Wharf under the cover of night. And they were hanging out of their window, filming with their mobile phones that we have paid for, we have given them, filming, that's the one, filming those mums down there who are scared for their children's safety, because we're importing these young fighting age men, and I keep using that expression, and I will use that expression, who are cooped up in these hotels, and what happens is they go out on the streets and they're looking, you know, sadly, for women to assault. And the other thing is, why are they in the international, whatever it was, hotel in Canary Wharf? I mean, I probably couldn't afford to stay in that, for goodness sake. And people rightly point out, they're in tents in France, they're in cages in America. What the hell are they doing in five-star hotels in the centre of London when they come here?
Well, and then we're going to play you a little clip in a minute from somebody who was outside protesting. An ordinary mother working class woman who just wants to be, you know, assured that this country is doing something for her as opposed to the other way around. Because we've also got the other ludicrous situation where there are people, and we're not absolutely certain that they're living in the hotel, but getting onto these Deliveroo and Uber Eats bikes and getting a police escort out of through the protest so they can carry on working illegally. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. But have a look at this one. This is a Britannia Hotel protester speaking to us yesterday.
So, what brings you down here today to the Britannia Hotel?
Well, basically, we've got men in this hotel. We don't know who they are, what they are, you know, and if it was women and children in there, we would be clubbing together and helping them. You know, no one wants to see anyone suffer, but why are they not in their own country fighting for their women and children like our men do? Take it ear for ear. You know, our men are sticking by us, so why ain't they sticking by their women? And as I say, it's got nothing to do with race, nothing at all, as you can see.
And that woman speaks, I think, for many mothers around the country. You know, how can you disagree with anything she says?
You can't, and I hate the way that Keir Starmer is betraying people like that lady. People, all of us, absolutely betraying the British people, and I honestly think that this is going to go on. It's going to get bigger. We're now being told, aren't we, that this Palestinian Action banned organisation. Yes. I can't quite remember exactly what the word is, but anyway,
yeah, prescribed.
Yeah, they're going to. They're doing an organised march, aren't they? An organised protest. I assume it's London, or it might be all around the major cities, to try and overrun the police, to try and overwhelm our court system. Well, what are we going to do about that? I guarantee you that Keir Starmer, once again, will betray the British people and let them do it. They are a banned terrorist organisation. Yeah. Now, we should be shipping in the police like we know we can do. We know we can ship in. The forces come from all around the country. Let's ship in extra police. Let's get these people taken off the streets. I don't care whether it's a administrative nightmare for the police. Just take them off, process them, set up pop-up processing units, for goodness sake. It's not rocket science, but we cannot give in to terrorist organisations, banned organisations, protesting freely on the streets of London or Manchester or anywhere else. The police need to get in there and get them off the streets.
Yeah, because those idiots from Just Stop Oil certainly stopped when they started locking them up, you know, because they all talk a good game. They all say, oh, we don't care if we go to prison. Well, it turns out they do, because now they've more or less disappeared off the streets, and now they're all Palestine protesters instead. And that's, you know, this year's thing. And it is absolutely outrageous. But what about the other story that really has been catching my eye this weekend? And this is the story from Warwickshire and the Warwickshire police, Sarah, who basically deliberately withheld the nationalities and the ethnicity of two Afghan men who have been alleged to have raped a 12-year-old girl. They've been charged, so we can't say too much about them individually. But it's absolutely outrageous that Warwickshire police say they defended what they did because they were following national policy in not sharing ethnicity or immigration status. Surely that's wrong.
It's entirely wrong. And actually later today, when I go into my constituency, I have a meeting with my chief constable, and he was actually spent quite a few years working at South Yorkshire Police. So I am absolutely going to be asking him about this. And what on earth are the police now doing? Who are they acting for? Surely the main function of our police force is to keep us safe, not protect migrants that are coming in and assaulting and allegedly raping a 12-year-old girl. I understand that's allegations at the moment, and charges have been made. But that's exactly what I'll be asking him. And the reason I mention that and South Yorkshire Police is, of course, because of the grooming gangs and what was going on up there. And to my mind, by withholding names of these people that have been charged on grounds of ethnicity. Mike, is that not just another Rotherham starting, another Rochdale, another grooming gang situation starting again? Because that's what happened there. The police did nothing because they didn't want to be accused of being racist. Well, what's happening now? The police are not giving these names out on the grounds of ethnicity. That is entirely wrong, because I tell you, if a white man had been charged with raping a 12-year-old girl, his name would be released immediately.
Yeah, of course it would. And now we've got another story of there's another charge involved here. So again, we can't get into the ins and outs of it, but an allegation and a charge has been made against a Sudanese asylum seeker with attempting to kidnap a 10-year-old girl in front of her father. You know, and this is going on now in many, many different cities up and down the country.
And this is what I'm saying. It comes back to the government. The government should be putting our children first, our safety first, the safety of our women and our children. They're putting it at risk. I start to become so almost speechless because I'm raising this constantly. I have many, many migrants in my constituency wandering around. Another thing that I'll be bringing up today with my chief constable is the fact that I've been told by people reporting to me and my constituents that they can ring the police about these migrants' we used to call it flashing, you know what I mean? What's the term? Indecent exposure. Yeah, that's right. To young girls. And you know what? They ring the police and the police say, oh, we don't come out to them. Or unless there's been some physical contact, no, we won't be coming out to that. Well, I'll be bringing that up today with the Chief Constable because, again, who is being prioritised here? It should be our children, our mothers that are prioritised, not these migrants. I think, Mike, we're getting to the point of frustration in this country. I really believe Parliament should be recalled and we should be discussing this. We should be debating this. We should be... I don't care if it takes hours and days, but Parliament should be recalled. This is a national crisis that we are facing. I've called it a national emergency, and people laugh at that. Well, what's it going to take to become a national emergency?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's an epidemic of crime which is going on, whether it be what you might call low-level crime, such as what you've just described that the police don't come out for. You know, this is community after community in this country being affected negatively by government policy. And it's not getting any better, and because, you know, they might be taking some of them out of some of the migrant hotels and putting them into houses, you know, then you get the Waterlooville situation where people are going, we don't want them here. You know, they're creating really, really massive division in this country, and that's what they say they're trying to stop.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm getting that in my constituency. Houses of multiple occupancy, full of these migrants, because they've moved them out of the hotel, they put them into these houses. Then you get all the issues of antisocial behaviour. Oh, my God, the pictures you're showing there. I mean, what's in those envelopes? Nice, probably cinema tickets and a ticket to the zoo and, free this and free bus passes and, how to get your benefits and God knows what else is in those envelopes. But I'll tell you what, I bet I'd love to have a look in one of those, wouldn't you, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely right. Shocking state of affairs. Sarah, great to see you. Good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Sarah Pochin there, MP for Runcorn and Helsby. Going to see the Chief Constable of her constituency coming up later on today to ask exactly those questions that you need asking about whether their policy is going to prevent them from giving out information about asylum seekers and illegal migrants committing crimes which we don't get to find out about because supposedly it's government policy, it's national government policy to withhold their identities. Absolutely staggering and shocking. Morning, Mike, says Lisa, could you find out who provides all the clothes for these migrants? Those turning up at the Britannia Hotel had matching tracksuits. They look like a football team. And also, who then launders the clothes for them? They always look well turned out. Unbelievable. Well, if you watched what we were doing last week down at the Copthorne Hotel outside of Crawley in West Sussex, you would have seen that the laundry gets done for them in the hotel. that the whole hotel is looked after by a whole series of cleaners, that they're living very nicely, thank you very much, on 3 meals a day. I watched that Care for Calais guy being interviewed yesterday on Sky News, and he was banging on about how, you might think it's great to live in a hotel for a year, but it's really not when you're in cramped conditions and eating subsistence-style food. Well, that ain't happening in the Copthorne Hotel, matey. You need to get out of your little bubble, charity-wise, and go and see what's happening in the real world. That's what I would suggest to you. Let's get a voice note from Matt.
Mike, Matt in Hove here. So, these 300 kids that need medical attention in Gaza, and obviously they'll come with their family as well, surely the last thing they need is a 5,000-mile plane journey. So, if two-tier Turnip is so desperate to help them out, why doesn't he just fly some doctors over to Turkey, get them to Turkey, and they'll get medical attention there? The UK can pay for it, because might as well pay for it, pay for everything else. We're totally skint as it is. Why are this Labour Party so desperate to bring everyone over to the UK from all corners of the world? It's just like one big toilet.
It's amazing, isn't it? Absolutely and utterly ridiculous. Matt, thanks very much indeed for that. This from Lorraine on the migrant process. Those illegal migrants laughing, deliberately mocking the mothers, fathers and grandparents protesting to keep their children safe should be rounded up, deported without any right of appeal. Such disdain for those who have to pay for their life of luxury while struggling to feed and heat their own family only serves to highlight the attitude of these men towards British people, and they must revoke any right to stay in this country. Yvette Cooper is a shameful individual who should have immediately instructed their removal and deportation. Well, they have created a rod for their own backs, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think they know how to get out of the situation. I don't think they know what on earth to do next. It's 7:23.
Trump, I mean, I was thinking about this the other day, and I don't say this in a pejorative way because I love America and I love Americans. He's very, very American. He's telling Starmer there, you know, you got to do something about migration. You got to get your act together. He's telling us to stop our net zero insanity. Yeah. He's telling us to do something about crime and so on and so forth. Stop the windmills. Start drilling. And all of us in Britain, this is what we would love to stand there and shout in that idiot Starmer's face.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:26. I'm Mike Graham. Chaz in Cannock says, I was at a local hotel protest on Saturday. It was calm, no trouble, no idiot lefties, and it was well organised. One here from Paul in Dorset. Bollard would do a better job than Keir Starmer right now. I mean, he really is messing everything up, isn't he? Dan Hodges at the weekend, by the way, wrote a piece under this headline in the Mail. If Starmer can betray the families of those killed or tortured by Hamas, he'll betray just about anybody. He later describes him as not just weak, he's a politically shallow, manipulative charlatan. This is a bloke who, as we played out last week, occasionally said about the Starmer government and the administration, wait and see. Maybe there'll be something good that happens. Well, it doesn't look that way, does it, I'm afraid. Let's talk to James Wild MP, Shadow Treasury Minister, who's with us right now. James, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Thanks for joining us. I mean, it's going to. I'm not going to. This is not the beginning of me asking you this question, really. But the government goes from bad to worse. Every Monday, I come in thinking, there's going to be something that's going to do something to restore the hope that we might have that this country can get back to its former reputation. People might not have liked what the Tories did in the last 14 years, but it's really gone off the rails since Labour have got in. And you're a Treasury Minister. I mean, they're announcing, wild, ridiculous ideas like £100 million to be spent, which they don't have, on a major crackdown on the people smuggling gangs. One, they haven't got the money, and two, it's not going to work, is it?
It's not going to work. The first thing they did on day one was to scrap the deterrent that we had in place. We hadn't operationalised that. I concede that totally. But unless you've got a deterrent, unless people know that if they come here illegally, they'll be detained and removed either to their own country or to a third country if it's not safe to return them, they're going to keep coming. They're going to keep spending thousands of pounds. And we've seen that in the figures in the last week. We've got to 25,000 crossings already this year. Yeah. That number's only going to grow. So this 100 million is just an announcement to try and deflect from what's been happening. But fundamentally, if you don't have a deterrent, then people will keep coming.
Yeah, exactly right. And, I don't understand what it is that they think is going to change by, for example, saying we're now going to make it illegal for you to post on social media anything to do with people smuggling. Well, it's sort of already illegal, and most of the people that are doing it are not in on British shores. They're in foreign countries, probably, recruiting various people to come and get onto a boat in Calais. They're outside of the reach of the British law anyway, aren't they?
They are indeed, and there's obviously some international cooperation that can have an effect here, but it was the NCA, the National Crime Agency itself, that said you need to have a deterrent, otherwise you're not going to be able to break the business model. Fundamentally, people are paying thousands of pounds to be transported on these small boats from France to the UK. If they know that when they get here, they're going to be leaving pretty soon after, they're not going to be spending those thousands of pounds, and that breaks the business model. So banning social media adverts, all that sort of stuff at the margin might make a tiny impact, but the real impact is going to come from actually having that very clear, simple message. And word will then spread that there's no point trying to come here because you'll just get returned. We read this morning about this supposed one in, one out deal with France. Is actually 17 in and one return to France. Is crazy.
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean, is it not right, we're hearing it from more and more people now, that we should be considering a return to Parliament? Because, I know that MPs all deserve a holiday like everybody else, but, the problem is this is a national emergency now. We've got protests going up and down the country. You've got migrants being moved into hotels and into, single or multiple occupancy properties. We've got lots of local communities up in arms, and something really needs to be done. And Keir Starmer seems to think that he can just keep ignoring it.
Well, the Prime Minister recalled his cabinet so he could make this announcement around recognising the state of Palestine to try and keep his backbenchers on board, but it doesn't have any sense of the urgency on this particular issue. You're right to highlight the hotels. Labour came in and said they would use fewer hotels, but the numbers of people in hotels are higher. We have seen protests. We've seen them in my own county of Norfolk as well, where communities are concerned about this. And you can't just ignore the issue. It's not going to go away anywhere. And particularly the hotel we've seen in London, the protest that we're seeing there, that hotel should be closed. They should be looking and listening to the local community and picking more appropriate places. Yeah,
would you favour a reopening of Parliament before, because otherwise nobody's going to be able to talk about any of this until September?
Well, I'm here talking about it now. I'm not on holiday. I'm around. But I think,
but you know what I mean. I mean, it would be more. I think you can hold the government to account in Parliament. You can't really. You can do it on here if you want, and it's a very good place to do it. But you know, wouldn't it be better if Parliament could be having debates about this?
Well, I think we have had a lot of debates, but you're right, it's a big issue. And if there's events that require the recall of Parliament, they'll expect that to happen. And meanwhile, we'll keep pointing out that these announcements that are being pushed out in the summer don't really amount to a row of beans. They're just kind of deflecting from the failure, fundamentally, to have a deterrent impact. Even EU countries are now looking at a similar scheme to we had with Rwanda. So the government needs to get serious about this problem and put in place a scheme and a system that's going to deter people from coming here. Otherwise, the numbers are just going to keep growing. We're going to see bigger demands and bigger impact on our communities, more hotels taking huge amounts of taxpayers' money being spent on all of this. And there's a lack of urgency from the Prime Minister.
That's what I fear. But James, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. James Wild MP, Shadow Treasury Minister there. I think he's saying that he agrees with me that we should be certainly paying a lot more attention to it. Certainly Keir Starmer should be paying a lot more attention to it. Let's talk to Alp Mehmet, Chairman of Migration Watch. Alp, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I mean, hard to believe that it's got as bad as it's got so quickly, isn't it? I mean, I know that you and I used to speak regularly.
It's not hard to believe, Mike.
Well, it seems to have sort of turbocharged itself over the past 6 months. You know, I don't know whether you can explain whether that's a real feeling or whether it just seems like that.
Well, 6 months ago, I was giving evidence to the Bill Committee. I said that the bill going through Parliament, which is now law, would actually encourage people to come. It would do nothing to stop the boats.
Yeah.
And the minister who was in that committee actually scoffed at what I said and tried to cover up by turning the issue to something else. Well, I've just been away for a few weeks on holiday, and I've come back and fully expected things to be worse. And they are.
Yeah.
The government is flailing. They keep coming up with pretend policies, with pretend solutions. And the only thing that is clear now is abundantly obvious is that they're failing. And unless they really get a grip and get real, then I'm afraid this problem will just continue to get worse.
Yeah.
Will they stop the boats? Most certainly not. The smugglers and the migrants, frankly, they're sitting there going, yay, cheering because this government is so inept, so useless.
Well, this is the problem, and they're now mocking people. I mean, with several pieces of footage from the weekend where migrants are taking pictures of people demonstrating outside their hotel, in some cases making lewd gestures, in some cases laughing, in some cases basically just taking the mickey out of ordinary people who have had enough and who are sick to the back teeth of all of these migrants being shipped into their communities, and now also suffering the effects of a crime wave, basically, that's going on.
Well, absolutely. I was partly amused by what I read this morning, I think it was in the Express, where one of the migrants shouted to an Express reporter covering the issue in France, you know the word, bleep, England.
Right.
Well, they're certainly doing that.
Yeah.
Look, Mike, do you know, if, for example, the one in, one out policy, you know, why I say this is all pretend stuff. If that was actually to work and they were getting 50 out a week, it would take something like 20 years to remove just those who are likely to come by the end of this year, 55,000.
Right.
If they did it 200 a week, it would still take 5 years. Over 5 years. It's just a nonsense.
Yeah.
The 100 million that is now being supposedly being added to the costs of doing what they think is necessary, 300 new officers for the National Crime Agency to provide the immigration enforcement team with money to do overtime. I mean, how is any of that going to help? How long is it going to take to train 300 more people?
Also, what are they going to do?
This is all fantasy.
If all they're going to do is what the current Border Force officials do, which is basically to rescue them from a smaller boat, to put them on one of their own boats and then bring them to Dover illegally, you know, technically speaking, you could charge Border Force with people smuggling, because that's what they're doing.
Well, absolutely. Although I think a number of us who used to be immigration officials say that from our contacts and what they say to us, the guys on the ground actually would desperately like to do what they're there to do, and that is prevent illegal migration. It's the government, it's the policies, it's what ministers are directing them to do that is making it impossible. We've got to think seriously about, you say about calling Parliament back, but what are they going to do, Mike? They're going to yap, and actually arrive at absolutely nothing until we get serious.
Well, if it's down to me, I would say you make emergency legislation, you immediately order the emptying of all of these migrant hotels, and you just start deporting people. But it's simple as that. That's what you do.
Well, yeah, if only, but that's, you know, and I know that that's not what's going to happen.
But that's what people want to happen. That's what should be happening. But
that
instead...
is what people want to. Look, I live round the corner from the Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf.
Yeah.
Yesterday, there was sirens after sirens with police rushing to get there, and it was all pretty peaceful as far as I could make out. I'm afraid that all I can say, Mike, is that this is a dire situation, but it's going to get a lot worse until we pull out of the ECHR, until we create more detention space, and we hold people who arrive illegally and remove them quickly. Remove those who arrive illegally, not the foreign nationals who are in prison and being released. I mean, that's just rubbish. The 35,000 that allegedly have been removed.
Nonsense.
Who are they? Who are they?
Well, most of them actually volunteered to go home. We know that much. Alp, we've got to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Alp Mehmet, chairman of Migration Watch, always been on the case with this story, has been ahead of his time on it. People didn't listen to him. They should have. Let's get a voice note from Nick.
I'm not surprised about your the anecdote of the taxi driver who was abused and told that they now have our country. I'm not surprised at all, because I think this is a plan, and when you look at the demographic makeup of the people coming over on small dinghies, you'll see that they are all males of fighting age, and they now outnumber our army, and we're walking into a time bomb.
Yeah, I know. It's absolutely incredible. Dave from Hull says, why are they providing mobile phones with camera facilities and internet connectivity? If the illegals ditch their passports and personal mobiles and they have no money, why not give them a very basic phone which has only telephone call facility? It's madness if the government cannot see this. Great show as usual. Well, how about Dave from Hull? We don't give them any phones. Why do they need a phone? What do you need a phone for? You've come here illegally. You're supposed to be fleeing for your life. You should be bleeding happy that you haven't been shot in the backside. Never mind having a free phone so you can play all sorts of video games on it and call up, you know, escorts or whatever else you're doing with it. You know, you don't need a phone. Just don't give them one. Simple. 7:40.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. This, of course, is the home of common sense. 7:42. Morning, Mike. You say these immigrants are all fighting-age men. Yes, but they're also working-age men. It's looking increasingly obvious that the UK workforce is pretty depleted, missing 11 million people who are economically inactive, 20% of our population. I can only assume they are needed to boost our workforce to aid productivity. Why else would the government do this to us? John in Blackpool, you've got a very vivid imagination. I don't know the answer to that, why they're doing it to us. I really don't know the answer to that. I think it's because they can't actually stop it and it's now out of control, so they don't know how to deal with it. That's the problem. 25,436 immigrants illegally arrived here in 2025 so far, and it's only August, just the beginning of it. Over 48,000, nearly 50,000 now arrived since Keir Starmer got into power on July the 4th of last year. Keir Starmer, who's now making a name for himself, not just for messing up Britain, but also for messing up the Middle East as well. Fleur Hassan Nahum is here, Israel's Foreign Ministry Special Envoy and former Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem. Fleur, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Hard to imagine how far Keir Starmer has taken Britain's reputation, I'm afraid, in the wrong direction when it comes to Israel and when it comes to what he's done since last week. It's now very clear that Hamas have been empowered by what he did, by offering them statehood. They're now saying that they will not lay down their arms unless and until they get a Palestinian state, which has Jerusalem, your city, as its capital.
Well, that's exactly what he did. He strengthened the hands of the terrorists. And basically what he said to them is this: you don't have to come to a ceasefire. Just wait till September. We're going to give you a prize. We're going to give you a state, which, of course, is impractical. Nobody knows what the borders of this state are. It's absolutely ridiculous. You know, if you would have said, you know, if you renounce violence, if you return the hostages, come to a ceasefire, we'll recognize a state. Well, then he would have incentivized Hamas to actually come to the table. But now Hamas have become even more intransigent thanks to Keir Starmer and his misunderstanding of the entire thing.
It really is quite appalling. And not only has he empowered them in their negotiations with international bodies and in their ability to do whatever it is that they feel like doing, but they've issued statement after statement saying things like, you know, this is the fruit of October the 7th. They've issued a horrible, just horrific video of this poor hostage, Aviatar David, who appears to be emaciated and digging his own grave. I mean, it's just disgusting, isn't it?
It's disgusting. It's jihadi Islamism. It's going to come to Europe. It's already there. And what nobody seems to be understanding is that the dots have to be connected. This is not a local conflict. This is not, oh, it's happening over there. It's happening in Europe today. Whatever they're doing to us is what they want to do to the entire Europe. How do I know? Because they're telling us. And the least we could do is actually believe the jihadi Islamists when they say, we're coming to get you too. This is what we had on October 7th. This is what we're dealing with. And Keir Starmer, instead of putting the pressure on them to come to the table, to be able to release the poor hostages like Aviatar David, instead of doing that, he's giving them an incentive not to negotiate by saying that they're going to get a prize in September. They're going to get a state. And by the way, I just want to remind everyone that Hamas don't want a two-state solution. No. What they're saying is, yes, give us a state. We're going to get rid of Israel. Yeah. And again, this is something that Keir Starmer either doesn't understand or he doesn't care about. But that affects our lives. He's messing with our children's lives. That's what he's doing.
And shamefully, he would appear to be doing it just to placate his own internal domestic policy and his own parliamentarians who think that you know we should be recognising a Palestinian state. Let's have a look at what David Lammy said at the UN last week.
And so it is with the hand of history on our shoulders that His Majesty's government therefore intends to recognise the state of Palestine when the UN General Assembly gathers in September here in New York.
Yeah, you get applause for that at the United Nations these days, don't you?
Absolutely, you get applause for that. And he feels so good with himself. And what he's done is just brought us back, essentially, and brought the Middle East back. It's absolutely ridiculous. Nobody knows what the borders of this so-called state is. Nobody knows who the leader. Are they also going to be recognizing the head of Hamas as the legitimate government in Gaza? Are they going to be recognizing Mahmoud Abbas of the West Bank, Judea Samaria, when he pays pensions to terrorists for killing Israelis? Who exactly is he recognizing? Mahmoud Abbas hasn't had an election for 20 years. So who is actually the legitimate leader of the Palestinian people? They don't want to bother with details, but this is why they come out looking so ridiculous. I mean, they can declare all they want, but the UN can't actually, don't have any type of legal mandate to create a state. So they can declare, but what's going to happen in actuality on the ground? All he's done is strengthen the hand of the terrorists. And in fact, the terrorists, Hamas, have thanked the UK.
Yes.
So there you go. When the terrorists are thanking you, you have to know you're on the wrong side of history.
Yeah, absolutely shameful. And he's even retreaded an old Tony Blair line there about feeling the hand of history on his shoulder because he doesn't have any ideas of his own. And it is really, really shocking. Also, the other problem, of course, for them is that they've got a whole series of international lawyers and members of the House of Lords who have written a letter to the government to say, actually, this recognition of Palestine is probably an illegal recognition anyway.
Of course it's an illegal recognition. It goes against all that Britain did in the 1920s and the 1930s. It goes against the Montevideo Convention. I mean, I could go on. But ultimately, the way I feel is Winston Churchill would be turning in his grave to see that the British government, instead of dealing with a clear and present danger to the world, which is Islamic fundamentalism, are instead pandering to Islamic fundamentalism in their own country. It's like what he said, you feed the crocodile, that the appeaser feeds the crocodile thinking they'll be eaten last. And that's exactly what the British government are doing.
I know. It's absolutely awful. I apologise on their behalf to you. But we'll see what we can do.
Well, thank God, Mike, there are people that, like you who see the truth.
There's a lot more of us than there are of them, actually, but unfortunately they seem to be in the government at the moment. Listen, great to see you. Thank you very much. Fleur Hassan Nahum there, Israel Foreign Ministry Special Envoy, former Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem as well. This is a voice note from Makkah.
Hi, Mike. I've only got one thing to say. Last one, out of the United Kingdom, please turn out the lights. I'm off to the Philippines to retire. Goodbye.
Yeah, thanks very much indeed, Makkah. A lot of people trying to get the hell out before it gets worse, even worse than it is now. Hard to believe, isn't it? One here from somebody who's just asking, that's from Robin Wiltshire. If people putting ads on social media encouraging illegal migration are to be prosecuted, is the government going to be prosecuted for the ad on their website describing the migrant benefits these illegals will be given on arrival to the UK and for giving them hotels? Good question. Very good question. Coming next, we're going to talk about Donald Trump. Errol Moorcoach is here in America.
A particular journalist at our friends at The Sun, Tom Bryden, has test-driven a load of fish and chip meals across the country, and he joins me now. Tom Bryden, wow, are you 25 stone?
I wasn't until last week.
What have you done, and why did you do this? This is brilliant.
So it's actually a really interesting reason. Obviously, we all know we like fish and chips. Everybody likes it. But who likes it the most in the country? Well, it turns out there was a study and it found out Scarborough has 93 fish and chip shops.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. This, of course, is the home of common sense. We are here until 10 o'clock. Got loads of you getting in touch, and thank you for so many of your messages. I mean, we're really straight at it every single Monday morning when we come in. It is Monday the 4th of August. By the way, don't forget, as well as all of the migrant hotel nonsense that have been going on, there was a slight exchange of warlike words between former leader of Russia and Donald Trump, of course. He's moved some nuclear submarines closer to Russia after it was said that war game training might be going on, and it was Alexander Medvedev, I believe it was, who said that, you know, you should be careful what you say about Russia regarding nuclear events. And so Donald Trump decided he would move some submarines a bit closer. And meanwhile, there's all kinds of things going on in the Taiwan-Chinese situation. So it's all out there at the moment. Let's not forget what Keir Starmer said back on the 2nd of June. Check this out.
We are moving to war-fighting readiness. When we are being directly threatened by states with advanced military forces, the most effective way to deter them is to be ready. And frankly, to show them that we're ready.
Yeah. Are we? Really? We can't even stop people coming in on the small boats, for heaven's sake. Let's talk to Eric Warcoach, who's from Republicans Overseas. Eric, very good morning, sir. Errol, I should say, sorry.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good to see you. Is this a bit of sabre rattling that's going on between Trump and Putin?
It is, and I think it marks a little bit of doctrinal change for President Trump. He came in, and I have to give him some credit. The people who were here before us, we were not sure what they had done in regards to peace. So coming in and making the overtures that he did, sort of going through at least the peace process with President Putin did not work. President Putin gave us nice words. It didn't really result in anything. Now, Medvedev, he's a former president. Now he's in the Security Council there. He's been saying these sort of bellicose, war-hungry, very aggressive comments for a long time now. I don't think this was maybe this was the straw that broke the camel's back, but this wasn't the only thing.
No.
Russia killed, tens of thousands of people this last year, or this last month just alone, and they've been striking into commercial districts, residential districts with drones and ballistic missiles. So I think this is Donald Trump now matching that with a little bit more force, because we have to keep in mind Russia has MIRV hypersonic warheads. These are Mach 10, 6 different warheads that can detach. I mean, there's nothing that can block it. So all we can do now is put a deterrent force and see if we can kind of pull this together.
Yeah, and I guess this will also be added to by, diplomacy of one way, shape or form about Ukraine as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge issue there, because right now we have gone from let's try to wrap this up, make a deal, to we are escalating. We are going to be backing Ukraine much more ferociously with weapons that are serious through NATO, funding them in NATO as the conduit. So this war is now not winding down, it's escalating. It's the opposite of what the voter wanted. It's the opposite of what President Trump wanted. So we need to find a way out of it.
Find a way out of it, yeah, because there was a poll done at the weekend which revealed that 86% of people in Britain don't have enough supplies to last one day if there was to be any kind of crisis that was in anything like a sort of wartime situation, despite what Keir Starmer says. Doesn't look like people are taking it seriously.
Yeah, I saw that, and I would, caution people, I guess, maybe to have more than one day. I mean, then again, you don't want people to go overboard.
No.
So it's. I mean, look, we're not trying to go into World War III. If you're a regular person at home, I wouldn't go and stock up on a year's supplies, but maybe have a couple weeks' supplies. The Russians have a very strong cyber capabilities, things that can take down critical infrastructure without using weapons and missiles, and those might be things you would want to save up your water bottles and food for.
Yeah, for sure. Meanwhile, Donald Trump found out this weekend that Sydney Sweeney apparently is a Republican. Have a look at this.
Came out this weekend that she was a registered Republican. Any thoughts on that?
That who was?
Sydney Sweeney. She's like a very hot actress right now.
She's a registered Republican?
Yes.
Oh, now I love her ad. Is that right? Is Sydney Sweeney? You'd be surprised at how many people are Republicans. That's what I wouldn't have known, but I'm glad you told me that. If Sydney Sweeney is a registered Republican, I think her ad is fantastic. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, well, there we are. Nobody's that surprised, but apparently she was one of those people who decided to switch to Donald Trump or to vote for Donald Trump because of something that he'd said.
Look, it's not just her. There's a lot of people who are unexpectedly Republican, and those are people who are in show business as well. People who are on television, and that you might not think so. And honestly, most of the beautiful women are Republicans, so it doesn't surprise me that Sydney Sweeney is on our team.
Yeah, it's an anti-woke thing as well, and people love the ad as well. It's a great ad. Good to see you. Errol Moorcoach, thank you very much indeed. Republicans overseas, who's now got the support of Sydney Sweeney. Jules in London says, morning, Mike. It's clear the government have no intention of stopping the boats, but they must stop now this epidemic of serious crimes allegedly being committed by the illegals. I mean, that is really the problem, isn't it? We've got ridiculous amounts of crimes being committed. Some of them have resulted in charges. We know we've got one in Essex. We've certainly got one in Nuneaton, two in Nuneaton, in fact. Now another one up in Redcar. Immigration, it's all about words, says Bill in Cheshire. Prior to Labour, all immigrants arriving illegally were called illegal. Now it's irregular. All the illegals will be given amnesty, so the backlog will disappear overnight. This will mean that only the irregular or legal immigration will be recorded. Stats improve overnight. They're hoping in 3 years' time nobody will remember this con. Yeah, except that the country will have been changed forever. And so you can't possibly say that it's not going to be completely forgotten. It won't be forgotten. What this country has become under this government will never be forgotten, as far as I'm concerned. 0344 499 1000. Annabelle Denham coming up from the Daily Telegraph. Also, we'll be talking to Henry Hill, who's got a column in the Sun today. This is Talk.
My message to people smugglers is this. I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Smash, 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 smash the gangs. Smash the people smuggling gangs.
People smuggling puns.
He couldn't even smash an avocado for a piece of toast.
Or the people... What would that... The people...
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash... Those... The smash...
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, where more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was a was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source. Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Well, I'm sure the smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now. Keir Starmer's on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work.
It's crap. It's crap. That's what he's basically saying.
I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. That means cutting migration, ending the use of asylum hotels and ramping up our efforts to stop small boat crossings.
It's like a parallel universe, the real world, as told by the impressive David Bolt, and Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' fantasy world.
We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up for 4 minutes past 8, I'm Mike Graham. It's Monday, the 4th of August, and we have got plenty to do this morning, ladies and gentlemen. All sorts of front pages with slightly different stories on them. But one theme very much is still the migrant problem. We've got anger growing in the Daily Mail over the ethnicity of dangerous suspects, because it turns out that according to Warwickshire Police, there is a national policy which they followed in the case of 2 illegal migrants who have been charged with the rape of a 12-year-old girl. They say there is a national policy in place in not sharing ethnicity or immigration status. Chris Philp, who is, of course, the Shadow Home Secretary, says the cover-up is absolutely a step too far. He says the police must be open about who is committing these alleged offences and not try to hide it. Otherwise, we risk a repeat of the rape gang scandal where horrendous crimes were covered up because of the identity of the perpetrators. He also says, I call on the government to ensure that the immigration status and nationality of all offenders is published for each crime and as quarterly totals. The public rightly expect complete honesty, and that's precisely what they haven't been getting. There's been migrant protests outside hotels up and down the country over the past few days at the weekend. Let's get a voice note from Belinda.
Morning, Mike. Great show this morning. God, so much to talk about. I just want to say, I think it must have been about 4 or 5 months ago, I said, why isn't he calling this a national emergency? Why isn't he calling a Cobra meeting? I don't understand the man. Has he just got blinkers on? Can he not see what the country are saying? He just doesn't listen to us. It's got to stop. Enough is enough.
Enough is enough is very much the phrase of the moment. That's what everybody's saying. Front page of the Times. Universities will lose cash if students claim asylum. Duh. What, you mean millions and millions of people have been coming into this country? Because it is millions, by the way, over the course of the last several years, claiming that they are students, claiming that they've got work visas, claiming that they are enabled to come here under some visa law because they're skilled workers. They could be DJs, they could be magicians. The best one the other day was the Nigerian storytellers. They can come here and bring 5 members of their family and stay for 5 years. Brilliant. Well, according to this piece, part of a government crackdown today, universities will be penalised if fewer than 95% of international students accepted onto a course start their studies, or fewer than 90% continue to the end, which tells you what's been going on in this country. People have been taking the mickey. We've been a magnet, basically, for freebies. People come here, they know they can stay. Now we've got demonstrations going on outside hotels where these migrants are being put up, and they're mocking the people doing the demonstrating. you know, filming them, blowing kisses, making lewd gestures. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. We're going to be talking about a teacher who was sacked after saying that Lucy Connolly's prison sentence was an example of two-tier policing. We'll tell you about a giant rat that was caught up in Redcar, and we'll find out exactly why. Prince Andrew is in trouble once again. 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Morning, Mike. Listening to your Israeli guest, you stated Churchill will be turning in his grave at the state of this country now. A bit of an understatement. He must be spinning like a top. If he was hooked up to the national grid, he could power the UK as it is indefinitely. A very depressed Paul in Hitchin. Yeah, I know what you mean. A word on David Lammy, says Kevin in Gloucester. He said the hand of history is on his shoulder. I think I speak for many when I say that it's more like the foot of history up Great Britain's backside. Kevin in Gloucester, thanks very much indeed. And Alan in Middlesbrough, Starmer sucking up to Hamas is all about him protecting his position in his own party and appeasing his pro-Pally backbenchers to avoid defection. The same reason he shipped over the kids from Gaza. It's all about him. He'd sell his granny off if it benefited him. It is really disturbing, isn't it, how easy it is that basically these people in Labour are able to switch around their allegiances just in order to see whether it helps them. Nothing to do with principle. This is probably the most unprincipled Prime Minister I think we've ever had. Let's ask Annabel Denham. She's here as Deputy Comment Editor from The Telegraph. Annabel, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Hard to imagine Keir Starmer sort of getting worse and worse and worse as the weeks go on, but he's managed it again. He's managed to get to Monday the 4th of August with an even worse reputation than he had last Monday.
Well, it's just quite extraordinary, really, isn't it? And it's reflected in his approval rating, which the last time I looked was around -43. He had one of the quickest falls from grace of any Prime Minister in British history when you look at that polling. And it's no wonder. I mean, every data point economically has gone south since Labour came into power. The cost of living crisis is only intensifying. Growth forecasts have been downgraded. Inflation is sticky. So you've got all of that mess that Rachel Reeves doesn't seem to have a clue how to fix. And then you've got the immigration crisis, which is just gathering steam. Obviously, we had 25,000 people coming across the channel in small boats in record time in 2025. Yvette Cooper, I'm afraid, looks like a rabbit in headlights. They don't seem to have any prescriptions for this issue. And so they are sort of resorting to all kinds of gimmicks. The university example, just the latest of their policies. But ultimately, Mike, we all know now that the only way that we're going to address illegal migration is with a credible deterrent. And that's the one thing that Labour seem unwilling to bring in. And all the while, legal migration figures are still far too high for us to have economic benefits from it or really decent integration of the people who are coming here. You know, the volumes, I'm afraid, the numbers are just simply too high. So I think there's just a growing sense among the British public that Labour has none of the answers to the problems that are facing the country. And that's before you get to this growing distrust between citizens and the authorities as a consequence of this sense that things are being covered up and concealed from them for fear of escalating community tensions.
Yeah, absolutely incredible that. We'll come back to that in a second. Let me just play a little clip that we've got. It's a short clip, this, of a protester who was down at the Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf yesterday. And she was asked about Keir Starmer.
And what do you say to Keir Starmer and the Labour government?
Waste. He's ruined this country. Ruined this country. Nobody in England likes Keir Starmer.
And I mean, she does speak for everybody, I think, in Britain now who just thinks Keir Starmer is an embarrassment, because he's now not just an embarrassment at home, he's now an embarrassment abroad. You know, we were speaking earlier in the last hour to a former mayor of Jerusalem. You know, he's basically empowered Hamas because of his ridiculous idea of offering statehood to Palestine without any conditions really seemingly attached to it. And you know, you've now got Hamas putting out horrible propaganda videos of hostages, emaciated hostages digging their own grave, and they've also basically said that they will not lay down their arms unless and until they're given their own nation, with Jerusalem at its capital.
Well, it was one thing, I think, for Keir Starmer to be a disaster domestically. That much was almost to be expected. This is a man who, before coming into number 10, said that he preferred Davos to Parliament. But he's failing by his own standards, because he seems to consider himself this great international statesman. And yet you had that embarrassing press conference with Donald Trump last week. You then had all the equivocating over Palestinian statehood, only for him to then capitulate to his restless backbenchers. And now we just look so staggeringly naive, Mark. You know, it's just extraordinary, isn't it, that we're giving these cuddly terrorists everything that they want, and they're not behaving as we think that they should be in response. What exactly did this government think was going to happen when we just capitulated to sort of everything that Hamas seemed to want? But ultimately, this terrorist organisation wants a one-state solution. It wants an Islamic State which encompasses the entirety of Israel, Gaza and the West Bank. And that's why their slogan is from the river to the sea. So what exactly does Starmer and his acolytes think is going to happen as a consequence of this recognition? It certainly isn't something that can happen overnight anyway, because, you know, where would you set the boundaries? They don't have a democratically elected government who would be, you know, in charge of this supposedly sovereign nation. But none of those questions seem to have been considered, let alone answered, because Starmer's being completely buffeted by events and pushed into announcing these sorts of things because he's under pressure to do so from the left wing of the Labour Party, but also for fear that if they don't kowtow to the Muslim vote, then they'll be under threat in 2029 at the next general election.
Yeah, it's totally naive. And also, which takes us to the front page of your own newspaper, Palestine Action plot to swamp police, because he's also kind of empowered Palestine Action. They've already got a High Court permission, or they've already got permission from the High Court to challenge the government's prescribing of them as a terrorist organisation. Now we learn, thanks to the Telegraph, that thousands of pro-Palestinian supporters are planning to flout terror laws in a coordinated attempt to overwhelm the police. They've hatched a plot to attend a demonstration on Saturday where there'll just be so many of them that the police won't be able to do anything. And we've seen that happen before.
I mean, you just wonder how on earth our criminal justice system has got into such a position that these demonstrators are assuming that if they are high enough in number, then there won't be any punishment, there won't be any consequence to their actions, because we do not have a sufficient number of bobbies on the beat. We do not have, the ability to get people through our justice system and potentially prosecute them as a consequence of their behaviour. So why is it that we haven't had investment here? Why is it that we haven't had the penal reform that we've desperately needed? Why haven't we invested in our prisons estate? It's just one of those cans that's been kicked down the road whilst successive governments have indulged in their pet projects and various luxury beliefs. I mean, I have to say, Mike, it might be an unpopular opinion, I do actually think prescription was arguably overkill. You know, as on other occasions, the saboteurs could have been charged within our existing laws, but we had to have this performative new legislation so that Labour could apparently show that it's tough on the left to offset its attack on the right in the aftermath of Southport. And now we've got the unintended consequences of that, which is a potentially farcical demonstration, which will give the impression that the laws in this country are unenforceable.
Yeah. No, I tend to agree with you. I think whoever comes up with any of the kind of policies that they come out with seems to not ever think through what the likely kind of consequences are going to be. Like, for example, exactly what happened with Hamas now. You know, did nobody actually have a conversation in Downing Street and think that, you know, what happens if we do this? What happens if we make this international public statement? And what happens if David Lammy goes to the United Nations and starts to quote from Tony Blair, the hand of history on my shoulder and all that cobblers, you know, while getting applause from the anti-Israeli brigade in the United Nations? Did he not think that it might have a knock-on effect, that Hamas might not capitalise on it in the same way that these Palestine Action people, you know, I mean, you don't even need to hire an expensive lawyer to say, well, what if we change the name of the organisation and then we won't be prescribed anymore, which is basically what they did.
No, nothing ever seems to really have been thought through. Everything seems to be being done on the spur of the moment. And just to the point on Hamas, that's why I think Reform and the Tories must go in really hard on this. They need to reassure Britain's dues, that Starmer does not speak for the country as a whole. And it sets a dangerous precedent, a dreadful precedent internationally, but I think it does domestically as well. You know, if Labour cannot resist this demand for recognition of Palestinian statehood, Mike, then what's going to happen when there are demands for Sharia law or bans on alcohol in Muslim-majority parts of, say, Bradford or Birmingham? Can we believe that they are going to be able to stand up to, you know, those sorts of interests when they're putting, you know, turning the screws and putting the pressure on? I'm not sure. So again, none of it really seems to speak to an overarching strategy or even sort of, as you said at the beginning, some kind of ideology set of guiding principles to which this Labour government want to adhere.
Quite. And to go back to your story earlier on about Nuneaton and Warwickshire Police, you know, incredibly, it basically would appear Warwickshire Police's defence for keeping the identities and the nationalities and the ethnicities of two accused rapists who are accused, by the way, of a rape of a 12-year-old girl in Nuneaton. They say they were following national policy in not sharing ethnicity or immigration status. And this is basically the Warwickshire Police telling the council not to reveal any information because it might arouse tensions in the area. I mean, it's absolutely outrageous, isn't it?
It is outrageous, Mike, but I blame the politicians. I blame the government. I have some sympathy with the police, whose ultimate job is to maintain rule and maintain order and to keep the peace. And if, you know, ultimately the government is failing to clamp down on this, if they are housing asylum seekers in hotels at a cost of £5 million a day, if they do not control our borders, have a robust immigration system, then they're putting the police in a very invidious position. Now, you know, I didn't support them, for instance, accompanying far-left protesters to the migrant hotel in Epping last week, and you can see why there was a backlash in response to it. But equally, what exactly are they supposed to do? But the wider question is, you know, whether the public deserves to have access to ethnicity data, and of course it does. The Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, was absolutely right in that regard. You know, there was so much evidence in the early 2000s that police and local authorities covered up grooming scandals, which often involve Pakistani gangs, because they were worried about being accused of racism. They were worried about inflaming community tensions, and in so doing, they lost the confidence of the British public. And if we're going to restore that, which is absolutely essential, then people do need access to this. People do expect, in our supposedly functioning democracy, transparency from the authorities.
Yeah, totally. Because at the moment, people are not really in the mood to accept anything that the police say to them. I mean, I was watching that protest down at the Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf yesterday, and these women who were behaving perfectly peacefully, wearing pink, doing the conga, you know, and the hokey cokey and all of that, were just defiantly saying to the police, we're not moving. The police were sort of walking through them saying, you have to get off the road, you have to get off the road. They were sort of shoving them a little bit, and they just said, we're not doing it. We're just not moving. And when you see the police yesterday also issuing, you know, an order to say that nobody can protest outside the hotel for the next 28 days, then having to rescind it because they realised they made a mistake, you know, it's all over the place. It's such a mess.
It is, and you know, I think that it's just an extremely dangerous position that we now find ourselves in. But it's been a long time coming, Mike. I mean, think about some of the actions of the sort of extreme green protesters over the last few years and the way that the police responded to that. You know, there has been this sense that if you are sufficient in number and willing to dig your heels in, then the chances are the police won't be able to do anything about it. And that's because we haven't got enough bodies on the beat. We don't have enough neighbourhood policing. You know, got too many people, sort of squaddies, just sitting in cars waiting for kind of some kind of emergency, or, you know, police in the police station trying to monitor how we behave on social media and imposing those non-crime hate incidents and that kind of thing. And it's just such warped priorities. And I think ultimately we've got to get back to having a much stronger police presence on the streets. And, you know, it isn't just protesting, but it's also things like fare dodging and shoplifting, which all of us are seeing on a near daily basis at the moment. There is this sort of overarching sense, whatever the crime data are telling us, it's increasing, that the country is becoming ever more lawless. And I think the only way to, you know, correct that is with more of a broken window strategy, where we do have that sort police presence on the street and are able to convince people that actions have consequences, that if you break the law, then there will be consequences. So at the moment, there is this sense that we have all of these laws, but the police are struggling to enforce them.
Yeah, exactly right. Annabelle Denham, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed, Deputy Comment Editor at The Telegraph. Coming up next, we're going to be hearing from Henry Hill, who's written a column in The Sun today about stopping migration. Of course, it's the big project, it's the big topic. Reform welfare, the state, and make deporting easier. Doesn't sound difficult, does it? Let's get a voice note from Simon.
As I understand it, Hamas are based in Qatar. Qatar have got buckets of money. I'm sure they've got state-of-the-art hospitals. They've got their own state-directed airline. Why don't they sort out these poor little kids in Gaza? They're a lot closer. Just a thought.
It's a very good thought, Simon. Yeah, I mean, that's where all their leaders live in Hamas, in high on the hog. Billions of pounds they've got sitting on. And also, supposedly, there have been a lot of Palestinian children airlifted out to the UAE and also to Egypt as well. So I'm not quite sure why Keir Starmer, once again, performatively wants to be seen to be doing the right thing, when in fact all he's going to do is inflame tensions here even more. It's absolutely ridiculous. This, of course, is Morning Glory. Back after this.
Foreign criminals have been vanishing from British courts mid-trial and re-offending under fake names. The former prosecutor talks about turning up for court. You know, you'd start the case, and as often happened, it gets adjourned for lunch. The judge says, "I'll give my ruling back after lunch," and the foreign criminal kind of disappears. And because they've been given been giving fake names, there's just no way of tracking them down in the system. So it's pretty astonishing, and it just kind of reveals some of the shambles going on inside our court system.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:25. I'm Mike Graham. Got this from Kate, who says, "Morning, Mike. Just a quick hi to say I'm currently at Manchester Airport, escaping to Murcia, albeit for a few days, but escaping storm Floris just in the nick of time. Still listening to you, of course. Hasta luego." Have a great time, Kate. It's a good part of the world down there, Murcia. Very pleasant. For the attention of Mike Graham, says Andrew, in Tadley. Great show. So Starmer put us on a war footing with Russia on the 2nd of June. But if the Russian soldiers just use rubber dinghies and land near Dover, we'll let them in and put them in hotels non-benefits, and they can all bring their relatives in. I know. Absolutely amazing, isn't it? Ridiculous. Well, of course, that is the main subject today we're talking about, and it's still the main subject on page 10 of the Sun today. Henry Hill from Conservative Home has written a column which says this: if you want to stop migrants, reform welfare state and make deporting easier. I mean, it sounds obvious and it sounds easy to do, but the trouble is anybody going to do it? Henry, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Your piece makes an awful lot of sense, so I assume that it won't make any sense to the government, who seem to think that sort of making announcements about cracking down on social media messages, cracking down on people trying to bring boats from Germany through Holland into France is going to make any difference. You know, the problem here is basically people coming and having the time of their lives, getting paid to be here and being given places to live.
Yeah, essentially, the golden rule when it comes to politicians and small boat crossings is look busy. Endless stream of announcements, endless stream of sort of relatively piddling initiatives around the edges, none of which make any difference, and all of which end up, as we saw from the unhappy fate of the previous government, costing them power. Now, the real fundamental problem is that there are huge pull factors, so-called, which mean that people who are in France and are safe are still desperate to get to the United Kingdom. Now, some of those we can't help. You know, speaking English, the world's second language, makes it considerably easier for a lot of people. That's, fine. But other ones we can. The fact that we have a non-contributory welfare system where you don't need to be a citizen or have paid in for any particular period of time to start receiving payouts in welfare, for example. The fact that it's so easy to work in our black economy because we don't have a national ID card system. Right. So the question is, fine, you want to smash the gangs, good luck. It'd be nice if you could. I don't think you can. But what do you do to do some fundamental reforms just to make it so that this country is less attractive, so that people don't feel that they should hike the thousands of miles and risk their lives in the Channel because they think this country is an easy mark? Yeah, exactly right. Because as long as it is easy to get in and as long as it is easy to stay, which it basically is. I mean, today you've got the Times leading on the front page about an asylum sort of, back door, if you like, because you've got people coming here on student visas who've got no intention of studying. People coming here on student visas have no intention of finishing their course. They use it purely as an access route to get into Britain, and they then claim asylum and say, well, no, I'd like to stay. And that's where the whole process sort of falls down. I mean, absolutely. I mean, international students is just an absolutely fascinating example of this, right? Because, we keep hearing that we need them because they basically prop up the university sector, which is crying out for reform. But there's a fascinating chart which was going around one of the right-wing think tanks last month, which basically showed what happened to international student visa applications when the government scrapped and then more or less revived the post-study work visa, which is the bit that lets you stay here for a bit, right? And it was just a cliff that went back up, right? It was a really deep valley. It is being used as an immigration backdoor, both for asylum and for other immigration claims. And we really do need to crack down on it. But again, that is another fundamental reform, because if you did crack down on for overseas students, that's going to punch a big hole in university finances. And that means that you're going to need to accept fewer people going to uni or force them to overhaul how they finance themselves, raise tuition fees. These are some really big questions. And our politicians would much rather give another tough-sounding press conference about how they're banning certain kinds of rubber dinghy or whatever it is that they're announcing this week.
Yes, exactly right. And of course, an awful lot of these sort of higher education centres are not traditional universities either. They're commercial operations that have been opened up purely and simply to funnel money and to get migrants who might otherwise be coming here illegally to come here legally. I mean, that's the con, isn't it? I mean, that's what's been going on.
I mean, it's fascinating when you hear about things like you have the London campus of the University of wherever in Scotland, or more than England. And yeah, absolutely. Or business studies, business colleges, which tend to be spin-offs, because business studies is overwhelmingly a very popular degree with people who are coming here. That is a huge problem. But the reason that politicians don't want to tackle it is quite simple. Tuition fees are already very unpopular. Labour put it up by a tiny bit. Wasn't a very popular move. But universities are currently hemorrhaging money. And they lose money on pretty much, I think the research from the Russell Group, they lose money on pretty much every domestic student, even the history graduates like me. So if you cut them off from that money, they have to make changes which might be unpopular. So instead, politicians prefer to just let them keep bringing endless numbers of people over here. I think there are currently 600,000 international students in Britain. That's a city the size of Glasgow.
Yeah.
Distributed around England and Wales. It's amazing.
It is ridiculous, and nobody seems to have been able to see that this might become a problem. You know, that's the other thing. I was talking earlier to a couple of our other guests about how this government apparently doesn't seem to think through the consequences of what they decide to do on a day-to-day basis. It almost seems as though for the last 14 years of Tory government, nobody really thought what might happen if they went down that particular road. You know, what will happen if you start saying to people coming here as students, don't worry, you can bring all your dependents as well, and people would turning up with sort of 5, 6, 7 dependents to go to college, and you think that's not going to be a drain on the society?
I mean, honestly, it's genuinely a question of a politician just trying to solve a very narrow problem in front of them. This was a real big problem with the Conservatives when they were in office, right? They keep talking tough on immigration, and then they'd go and appoint a Home Secretary who would talk tough on immigration, and then the departments of immigration, the departments of the Treasury, Business and Education would endlessly advocate for higher numbers, and they'd usually get them. And so the Conservatives would go around sounding tough, and their critics would say that they would lurch to the right and everything else, but the immigration numbers just kept going up and up and up and up and up. And the best case scenario is that the politicians are simply trying to solve a very narrow problem without thinking through the second-order consequences. The most absolutely amazing example of this, not on immigration, but just recently, John Healey, the Defence Secretary, committing Britain to the defence of Taiwan.
Yeah.
Into the Chinese.
That's a strange one.
Right. America hasn't committed to the defence of Taiwan, by the way. And 2 years ago, obviously a life age for politicians now, but 2 years ago, John Healey was saying that all the East of Suez stuff was absolutely ridiculous. Like, what's changed? Right. But he just wanted to make an announcement. It's
incredible, absolutely amazing. Great column today. Anyway, Henry, thank you very much indeed. Henry Hill, columnist at The Sun, page 10 today. If you want to stop migrants, reform the welfare state and make deporting easier. You know, there it is in a nutshell. Not difficult, is it? Let's see what people are saying on the Sun letters page. And you guessed it, of course, it's all about migrants. This one from Nora in Windsor. It says, Yvette Cooper will never halt the small boats unless she stops Border Force and RNLI acting as a migrant taxi service. The Home Secretary also needs to quit housing and financing them with UK taxpayers' cash. Our namby-pamby government brought this on themselves. And Helen says from Harwich in Essex, is our Home Secretary so detached from reality that she thinks fast-tracking asylum applications will solve the migrant problem? Doesn't she realise how angry people are over the luxury awarded to illegal immigrants? Stop their perks, get us out of the European Court of Human Rights, control the borders and start earning your pay. Ms. Cooper. Well, you know, there's a whole host of them along similar lines. It's very clear that people are sick to the back teeth. They have had enough. They absolutely have had enough. Michael in North Staffordshire, it's a pretty bad day. I can't put a silver lining on it, and there is no feel-good factor here in the UK. I'm surprised there aren't protests outside Buckingham Palace instructing the King to dissolve his government whilst there is a chance of recovery. It can't wait another year, let alone another 1,400 days. Thank you, Mike. I know, it seems so precarious now, doesn't it? It seems as though everything that the government touches literally just falls apart in their hands and turns to dust. Let's get a voice note from Laura.
Morning, Mike. Laura in Wiltshire. Listening to your piece with the American interviewee talking about us being war-ready and having supplies. Just fantastic that the brilliant intellectual that is Angela Rayner is planning on selling off all of the allotments around cities to build houses for, I can't imagine who. Meanwhile, farmers are being encouraged to plant solar panels because those are really good to eat if we had a war. Honestly, I'm almost ready to give up listening to or reading the news, but thank goodness you keep us sane. Great show.
I'm going to try and keep everybody sane as well. We do the news a slightly different way here on Morning Glory, but we bring it to you nonetheless. Coming up, we're going to be talking to Sean Baker, British Army veteran who attended the Barbican protest. This was yet another hotel protest that was going on over the course of the weekend. And Widdicombe is going to join us as well. Plus, of course, we'll take more of your views and more of your voice notes. 0344 499 1000. This is Morning Glory.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:37. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. Hi, Mike. Who is our Home Secretary? Has she emigrated? Who's in charge of protecting the public? Says Paul in Dorset. Good question. Let's get a voice note from Judith.
Good morning, Mike. It's Judy from Altops, West Yorkshire. Great programme, as usual. Yvette Cooper's going to get a crack team to get rid of the backlog of asylum seekers. We all know what's going to happen. She's just going to tick them all through, and then they'll all be emptied in hotels back out on the streets. They'll be the council's problem, not the government's. And she'll say, there, we've emptied all the hotels. She must think we're thick. Man, she's our MP, my MP, I should say. So we're not as thick as she thinks we are. Thank you.
Judy, thank you very much indeed for that. Yvette Cooper, not sure if she's away on holiday at the moment. She looks like Angela Eagle is doing her bidding for her today on the sort of round of various TV interviews. Of course, they don't like coming on here. So we'll talk to Anne Widdicombe, who does like coming on here, I believe. Former Home Office Minister, of course. Anne, very good morning to you.
Good morning, and yes, I do like coming on your show.
Very good. Nice to see you. Things are just going completely haywire, out of control here. We've got protests up and down the country. The police don't seem to know what they're doing. You know, on the one hand, they're telling us that they're taking part in what appears to be national policy to withhold information about who's committing various alleged offences. According to the Warwickshire Police, it's national policy to not share ethnicity or immigration status. And this is after two men were charged with allegedly raping a 12-year-old girl. The police told the council not to reveal who they were.
Yes, I mean, the police are treading quite a difficult line between trying not to inflame tensions in the community and at the same time giving us the information which we are fully entitled to have. And I understand a brief delay. What I don't understand is a prolonged one. And I think that what we have now is extremely serious. This could boil over at any moment. I think that those who are protesting outside hotels might ask themselves if they could protest instead outside government, in Whitehall, outside ministries, where there wouldn't therefore be any danger to the community. And those who are doing the counter-protests are frankly wasting their time, because until the situation is solved, those protests will continue and are right. And I don't mean they're right when they become in any way violent or when they scare people inside those hotels. Remember, there are staff there as well. It's not just migrants in there, there's staff.
Sure. But of course, like many of the protests that we saw over the weekend, particularly the one we're looking at now down in Canary Wharf, that started as a very peaceful protest. And many people, similarly in Epping, have said the same thing. They then get presented with lots and lots of police turning up, who I understand have to be there to perform, you know, some kind of peacekeeping duty. But by and large, a lot of protests have gone off without any problem at all. And I'm not entirely sure, when you see either left-wing protesters or right-wing protesters turning up, whether they're genuine, whether they're just somebody wants to have a, sort of a punch-up with the police, whether they want to make a point. You know, there's so many different moving parts to all of this. And surely what you would have to say as a government minister is, what we've got to do is to stop this. We've got to move all these people out of the hotels.
Yes, I mean, that is the crucial and central point in all of this. If migrants were not distributed throughout hotels in various communities up and down the country, these protests would not be happening, because there'd be nothing, at least in that sense, there'd be nothing to protest about. And I have been saying for a long time now that what the government should do is what I would do and what Reform would do, which is to close down the use of hotels for migrants and instead house them in secure camps, and I mean secure camps. Yes. And that is what we should be doing. And if they were in secure camps, they wouldn't be able to commit crimes. Now, not all of them do commit crimes, and I'm not suggesting they do, but some of them do, and they wouldn't be able to do that if they were in secure camps.
Exactly. And so would these be camps that are already sort of ready-made, if you like, or would you be building more camps?
You'd have to look at the stock that you've already got, but I remember that when I was trying to increase prison capacity, I looked, for example, at a disused holiday camp. Now, work it out. You've already got the accommodation. All you need is the secure perimeter and the patrolling. So there will be stock around the country which could be used. Nobody will want it in their backyard. Nobody. But that is what you do. But ask yourself this question, Mike. If we were in a situation now of international hostilities and we had to take prisoners of war, we'd very soon be setting up camps. And, you know, now we've just got to take this seriously and say that all the money being spent on hotels must be rechanneled into secure camps where the community won't feel under any threat. I mean, that is the crucial thing in all of this. People are feeling threatened and they think their children are in danger.
Because that's the thing, their children are in danger, because as you say, without having, you don't have to pretend that everybody who's in that hotel is a potential criminal, but technically they are, and in many cases crimes have been committed, charges have been laid, you know, and it is happening in various different parts of the country. And so I think your solution is a great one, and one that's the first one I've really heard, which actually I think would satisfy the public.
Well, it would satisfy the public because it would deal with the problem. Nobody's dealing with the problem at the moment. I mean, and those problems vary from low-level problems to very, very serious stuff such as rape. And they, you know, it wouldn't be happening if we had them in secure camps. I've been saying this since 1999. It's not something new I've come up with. 1999. House all new asylum applicants in secure reception centres. Tell them you're going to refuse their claims if they've come over from a safe country, and deal with it as quickly as you can, which is not in 48 hours, but you can deal with it fairly quickly. That is what we have to do. If we don't do that, the message is still going out there, Mike. You come to Britain and you're very unlikely to be removed.
I know.
Where you think you're going to be refused, you disappear into the underground economy. And as your previous interviewee said, we don't practice detention anyway, but as he said, we don't even have national identity cards. We have no means of tracking people. And this has gone on for decades.
Yeah. It is extraordinary, isn't it? We'll have to keep talking about it, Anne, but we've run out of time just now. Thank you very much indeed. Anne Winnicott, former Home Office Minister, with what appears to be a pretty good solution, certainly reform solution. You know, build camps for these people, move them out of the hotels, problem solved. Let's talk to Sean Baker now, a British Army veteran. He attended one of the protests yesterday in London. This was outside a hotel in the Barbican, I understand, which is sort of pretty much central London, very, very, you know, busy part of the city, full of residents, full of shops, full of children, as well as mothers and fathers. Sean, a very good morning to you.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me on, mate.
Not at all. Thanks for joining us. Tell us what it was like where you were. We've seen a lot of footage from the Canary Wharf sites, the Britannia Hotel, not so much from the Barbican. What was it like there?
Yeah, I got to say there was more far left mob than there was crowd than there was us. I went down there with citizen journalist David Atherton. And I can say, yeah, we as we approached towards the hotel, and you had the Antifa crowd already there, all balaclavaed up, masked up, throwing chants like "Nazi scum off our streets." Narinder Kaur was at the forefront of all the stand up to racism and refugees welcome here and stuff like that. Right. And yeah, it was just yeah, because when I went down there, that they were very aggressive. Like I say, we quickly got moved on to around to the Cordon side area where the group that we were meeting up with were, and round our side of the street, very peaceful, lovely speeches delivered, you know, by Nick Tenconi, Danny Roscoe, various other speakers, including my friend David Atherton, and there was a lot. You know, there's families around there. There was kids, yeah, and it was very peaceful. But all you could hear was, you know, the Antifa crowd round the other side of the building. All the police were lined up in droves for their protection, right?
There seemed to be an awful lot of police,
and it was all very one-sided.
Yeah. There seems to be an awful lot of police, and were the police aggressive? I mean, they look as if they've been quite aggressive there.
I think you'll find the police were I think you'll find the police on that day were dealing with the far left, which would be Narinder Kaur's crowd, yeah, and all the Antifa, all the guys that were there, you know, masked up. Why they're hiding their identities, I don't know. But one thing I will say is, on Narinder Kaur's side, behind the barricades, they all had pretty much, there's probably about 50, 60 of them in the crowd, with her at the forefront. They all had the exact same placards, identical to each other, which evidently just proves a point in saying that they're clearly funded by someone to be there, right?
Yeah.
And we just, like I say, I'm ex-forces. I love my country. You know, I'm concerned about what's going on. I don't agree that we should be housing illegal migrants in hotels, 5-star hotels. You know, all you can eat buffets when we've got our own veterans out on the streets. You know, and these unvetted migrants are coming over by boat, by lorry, even by you know, turning up to the airports. Do you know what I mean? I think it's ridiculous, and I think at the end of the day, I don't understand why we're getting labelled as far right and far right extremists just because we're concerned and we're worried for our children in our country.
Yeah,
like everyone's got that right to be fearful for their kids.
Yeah, and of course, and it's not just in London either, is it? It's happening all over the place. It's happening down in Hampshire. It's happening out in Essex. It's happening up north in Newcastle. There was a big march in Manchester yesterday. You know, but I mean, is this going to go on? How long is it going to go on for, do you think?
Well, this is the question. I mean, with Keir Starmer and the Labour government, it's clear that there's an agenda there, because I for the life of me, Mike, I don't understand why they find it so hard to have a deterrent. You know, I've been saying since the beginning. I mean, I'm not being funny. We've got the Royal Navy. They should be utilised and used for, and they should be utilised and put in the Channel to do the job that, you know what I mean, to do the job that they signed up to do. Do you know what I mean? You know, I don't understand why we can't utilise our Royal Navy, place them in the channel, because if you do that, then clearly you've got a deterrent there. They're not going to allow any boats to come through the channel at all.
Of course
but instead, you've got the RNLI, coming up beside these dinghies, helping the migrants, escorting them through. I think it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's the biggest threat to our national security ever, and you've got these and you've got the crowd, with all their placards and with the far left saying refugees welcome here. I saw one placard that said, "I feel more safe in this country with refugees than the right wing."
Yeah. These people are completely
and I thought,
demented.
How does that sounds so ridiculous? It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I know. They're completely demented. I don't know what you do with people like that. Sean, listen, good to talk to you. Keep in touch. Thanks very much indeed. British Army veteran who was at the Barbican protest yesterday. Lots of protests up and down the country. If you were at any of them, by all means, get in touch with us and let us know what it was like where you were. Serious question regarding the illegal migrants, says Paul. How many are too many? If 10,000 came over every day, would it be too many? Would that make the government wake up? How many are too many? Says Paul in Rochester. Well, I'll tell you what, we've already got too many. Simple as that. Should be zero. Net zero immigration, as Richard Tice used to say. Coming up, we're going to talk to Jamie Jenkins, our favourite statistician. He's going to break down some stats for us about people in jails in this country. And it's kind of an interesting subject. We'll bring you that next.
I think in the last year, 40,000 such passes were issued, and 3/4 of them were for asylum seekers. And that's just ridiculous. I have a constituency case where somebody who's on pension credit mistakenly thought that she was entitled to a free dentistry, and she was then fined for having made an honest mistake, and that was implemented by the NHS Business Services Authority.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:55, coming up to the last hour. Isabel Oakeshott's going to be joining us. We'll talk some more about some of that footage we've got from outside of the Britannia Hotel down in Canary Wharf, of course. Kevin Tamworth says, I live near Nuneaton. The anger over the weekend here is growing over these illegal migrants. This outrage is creeping. Until a member of this government is personally affected, nothing will happen. Well, a member of the government's been out and about this morning, Angela Eagle, who is the Home Office Minister, of course. She was on BBC Breakfast this morning. Doesn't come on here, I'm afraid to say. She was asked about 1,355 migrants that came into the country just last week.
We're also working with our French colleagues who've stopped 12,000 crossings so far this year, 12,000 people crossing, to change their stance, their maritime stance, so that they can stop boats in shallow waters. The tactics of the people smugglers change when they realise that particular rules and regulations are in effect, which is why they developed this way of having people stood in the water to clamber on boats. That is going to change soon when our French colleagues change their tactics. We have to change our tactics to adapt to the changing tactics of the people smuggling gang.
It's not a football match. We had to change the tactics in the afternoon session because the first morning session where our tactics were wrong. Also, the French are not going to do that. They keep promising to do things, but they don't do them. We give them 770 million, they don't do anything. They said they're going to go into the water to stop the boats from being jumped on. Then they said they couldn't do it. It was against their laws. And then they said, of course, that they were going to start puncturing the boats. They punctured one. You know, ridiculous. Let's talk to Jamie Jenkins, independent statistician, of course. He's here with us because he's been looking at some of those stats that came out last week about people in our jails. Jamie, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. And just on the tactics, what normally happens in football, if your tactics ain't working, you change the manager. So maybe it's time to change Starmer, perhaps.
Yeah, well, it's one way of looking at it. But, I mean, I just don't understand what the hell they're doing. They don't seem to know what the hell they're doing. But you've got some interesting stats for us, which is kind of still related in a way to what we've been seeing this weekend, right, in terms of the protests and public order offences and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so it was kind of released last week. There was a lot of discussion on the foreign criminals in jail, and so I was looking through all the numbers, Mike, and you get in a lot of comments this morning and people on the show talking about the protests. People are getting angry with people coming over the small boats and crimes, and what we've seen is quite stark. We've seen a big increase now, 65% increase in the number of prisoners in jail for public order offences, which will include things like going to the protests, some of the things they're posting online. So we've kind of always seeing now under Keir Starmer, Mike, a bit of a situation now where we're locking up opinions and we're letting out offenders, because this 65% increase means we've got now over 3,100 people in jail. But we'll remember over the last year as well, we've also let out 16,000 prisoners early because we didn't have enough room in the jails. So, you know, you've got this two-tier system now where the numbers are backing up what a lot of people have been saying on your show for the last year,
right,
where people are being locked up for these opinions, going to these protests, and people are being let out early. And the sad thing is, Mike, we have seen evidence as well where somebody was let out early and they went on to kill somebody, you know, so this is quite shocking what we're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely right. And in terms of these people who are being, I suppose you might not know the answer to this, but in terms of people who are being locked up for this public order stuff, does it tend to be people who haven't really been anywhere near a prison before?
Well, we don't know that. We just got the bare figures, Mike. But if you track the figures for the last 10 years, as what the government published last year, they were hovering quite flat for about, 10. They started creeping up a little bit in the last couple of years, but marginal. And then I've got a kind of a chart on my website, and it just shows that this massive rocket up as soon as Starmer came in. Now, it did coincide with the riots, but you've got to remember then that Starmer launched this National Violent Disorder Programme.
Yeah.
He was, encouraging the police to clamp down on this. And we've seen more arrests over the weekend. We've got the online safety bill, which might see more arrests again that's come in because of the kind of policing of free speech. And it's quite stark. I've never seen, the only thing I've seen where it's rocketed up over the last year are things like the job losses as well, Mike. So, these are kind of quite stark statistics letting people out early when the prisons are full and then filling the prisons up with this kind of offence does seem rather strange, I think.
It does, doesn't it? As well as you know, I mean, particularly given we've got such a backlog in the judicial system, where we hear that there's something like 76,000 outstanding cases and a backlog that goes for at least a year, possibly 2 years, before you can even see a trial judge. An awful lot of those public order offences were seen straight away. An awful lot of the people who are in prison now were convinced that they should, by their own lawyers, plead guilty, because then they would be given a lighter sentence, and none of that happened.
Yeah, and that's quite an important point what you said there, Mike, that a lot of people were scared. People who have never really been in trouble with the police pled guilty. We had an instance in South Wales where I am, where somebody, they said, oh no, I'm not guilty, I'm going to go to court on this. They went all the way to court, took a while. They were in prison for part of the time, but as soon as they went to court, Mike, they had the trial. Jury took less than an hour to throw it out. So I think if more of these people held their nerve and didn't plead guilty to start, they probably wouldn't have gone to jail in the first place. So I think that's what's being borne out in these figures now, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. Fascinating. Jamie, good to talk to you. We'll have to explore it a bit more soon. Jamie Jenkins, independent statistician there, on some very interesting stats on who's going to prison and what they're going to prison for. And a lot of them are going there for the first time for public order offences. Carolyn Lowestoft says this: so Yvette Cooper's going to go after advertisers for boat crossings and advertising all they can get when they get here, even though it's a world wide web and the advertising can come from anywhere where she has no jurisdiction. Also, is she going to arrest all the Home Office because on their own website they advertise all the benefits these migrants can expect when they arrive? You actually couldn't make up this utter ludicrous rubbish by an inept, dangerous to Britain government. And Jess in Dover says this: do you reckon someone will think to check whether the Gaza children being brought for treatment here have family links to Hamas before they're allowed to bring their relatives to the United Kingdom? Well, it's a very good question, but I bet you they won't. Any money they won't, because they don't even have the wherewithal to think that way. 0344 499 1000 is the number to talk to us on. We can take a voice note. You can text us on 87222, tweet us at talkTV. Isabel Oakeshot's coming up in the next hour with more on the protests. This is Talk. Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. It's the one show where you do not have to be worried about judgmental people, because we'll do all the judging for you. Let's just have a look at how Humsley Useless is now spending his time.
There goes your career, mate.
Over there a bit is over towards where all the migrants come in. He's jumping there. There he goes. He goes over the bar. Hello, and unfortunately, it catches on his Johnson.
If he's Plank of the Week, he's got a sizable plank.
That's a whole different show.
Plank of the Week, Fridays at 7 on Talk.
Hi, I'm Kevin O'Sullivan,
and I've got a message for you. Welcome back to this blockbuster edition of What Just Happened. It really is a good one, I think. It's so...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 5 minutes past 9. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. I can barely speak. It's only Monday. Give me a chance to get my mouth into gear. I've been off for a couple of days. Anyway, listen, we've got lots to talk about this morning. Front page of The Sun. Oasis fan dies in gig plunge. A lot of people asking the question last night, how was it possible that Oasis gig actually went ahead last night after the night before somebody falling to their death from the top tier of Wembley Stadium? It just seems kind of incongruous, doesn't it? I mean, I'm sure it was a great show and I'm sure people enjoyed it, and I'm sure that there can be people who will say, of course you just don't cancel an entire show because of something like that. But really, don't you? I would have thought you might at least take a breath and go, maybe we should just put it off for a night and move everything. I know that's not always easy to do, but we'll talk about that coming up in this hour. Baroness Claire Fox is here in this hour, as is Isabel Oakeshott. She's been collecting some information about the weekend's protests, and of course we've got some really, really interesting footage coming in for the Britannia Hotel protest. We talked about one at the Barbican in London as well. Let's get a voice note from Sharon on migration.
I've actually watched something on BBC this morning, and they're on about it now, on about immigration. So we must be getting bad if they're now spending some time on a morning talking about immigration. It's just all getting worse.
Well, they've been forced, of course, to pick up where we left off, where we started this whole conversation years and years and years ago. We've been talking about it for a long time. Home Office Minister Angela Eagle was asked about 1,355 migrants that crossed just last week.
That is going to change soon when our French colleagues change their tactics. We have to change our tactics to adapt to the changing tactics of the people smuggling gang.
Yeah, I'd go with 4-4-2 personally. I think that tends to work in a sort of a defensive format, particularly if you're playing away on the French side, and then maybe change it back to a sort of a 3-3-4. Possibly when you become more engaged with the crowd and you decide that you might be in a position to win. That would be my suggestion. 0344 499 1000 is the number. The other big story that is exercising an awful lot of people this morning comes from Warwickshire Police. Warwickshire Police who were involved in the arrest and charging of two asylum seekers from Afghanistan in Nuneaton for the alleged crime of rape of a 12-year-old girl. They decided that it was a good idea to instruct the council in local areas of Warwickshire not to reveal the identity or the nationality or the ethnicity of the two men in question. And they've said, basically, they were simply following national policy in not sharing ethnicity or immigration status. Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, has said this is outrageous and they need to show honesty, integrity and transparency. So if this is national policy, what else are we not being told? Meanwhile, there's another terrible case of a man who's been charged with the crime of allegedly trying to kidnap a 10-year-old girl in front of her father. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. 0344 499 1000. This, of course, is Morning Glory. And before we speak to Isabel Oakeshott, let's have a listen to one of the protesters who was down at the Britannia Hotel yesterday. She was asked about the Prime Minister.
And what do you say to Keir Starmer and the Labour government?
Waste. He's ruined this country. Ruined this country. Nobody in England likes Keir Starmer.
Yep, I'm afraid she does speak for the nation. Isabel Oakeshott, very good morning to you.
Good morning. What a comical clip that was of Angela Eagle. I mean, it doesn't just completely sum up the utter abject uselessness of this government when tackling what should be quite a simple problem to resolve. And I'm hearing them banging on this morning about changing the rules for universities, punishing universities that accept too many that don't actually start their courses. And they're using it as a ruse to claim asylum. I mean, you can just approach this much more simply and simply say, if you're the government, that if you come here on a student visa, you are automatically disqualified from claiming asylum.
Yeah, absolutely right. It seems so straightforward when you put it like that, in the same way as we just heard from Anne Widdecombe, who said, you know, we've got a perfectly simple solution to this. And I said, well, surely you've got to get these people out of asylum hotels. And she said, yeah, get them out of the asylum hotels and put them into effectively, you know, detention camps or army camps or, you know, former holiday camps, that kind of thing, which can then have an enforced perimeter. And until such time as you've declared them either welcome or not welcome, that's where they stay.
Yes, I mean, Greece has managed to get itself a kind of derogation from these international treaties that we seem to be, well, I say we, our leaders seem to be so obsessed about not breaching. Greece has said we've got a national emergency, too many people coming in, and have managed to get themselves an opt-out. And they've also been very clear that anyone who comes to their shores illegally will be detained and kept in pretty rough conditions. Compare and contrast with what we do, which is, as everybody now knows all too well, provide not just luxury accommodation, but all manner of other totally unnecessary extras. And what we're now seeing, Mike, and I think this is fascinating, is a rise in citizen journalists who are getting quite brave about just going into these hotels and filming or filming through windows. I don't think that, I don't know what laws that breaks. It probably does break some laws. I'm not encouraging it at all. But the outcome is that we are much better informed. I saw a clip on Facebook yesterday from somebody who just walked into a hotel and started filming. And that revealed that there were laptops, new laptops in the bedrooms of these migrants. That's something we didn't know. Not one, but two smartphones in some of these rooms. I mean, this is just getting completely and utterly out of control. And the protests that we're now seeing across Britain are an expression of the exasperation and fear and frustration of so many people in this country who can see that this has gone way too far and are actually worried about the very real impact it's having on their own communities.
Yes, and we saw some really ridiculous things over the weekend as well, didn't we? We saw, for example, outside the Britannia Hotel, where the police were effectively escorting a guy on an Uber Eats bike out through the crowd. Now, I don't know if the Uber Eats bike man that you can see there, I don't know whether he works for Uber Eats outside of the hotel and was delivering to the hotel, or whether he actually lives in the hotel and is working illegally. But this was actually reposted by Nick Timothy, the Tory MP, who said it would appear that the police force in this country now is escorting illegal workers through a perfectly peaceful protest of people who pay taxes. And that's where we are.
I mean, that is a complete and utter disgrace and an example of how topsy-turvy everything has become. And this morning, what's exercising me is exactly who are these masked protesters, these masked thugs that somehow or other suddenly arrive en masse a couple of hours into peaceful protests and create merry hell. Who are these people that are somehow equipped with smoke bombs and cover up their features? You know, that protest yesterday, my researcher was there outside that hotel in Canary Wharf, was vast majority mums and children. They had gone out of their way to show that they were not in any way anything other than peaceful. They were wearing pink. It was all very sweet. You know, they were doing the conga. It was just, a very, very British demonstration. And then all of a sudden, a few hours in, there appeared to be an organised attempt to disrupt it. I have real questions about who these masked thugs are, and it's all too convenient in my view. I'd like to know what is the organisation behind these people, because it isn't a spontaneous thing. Of course it isn't. And it gives the police exactly the excuse they need to disperse a crowd. Something fishy about this. As a journalist, all my instincts are saying that this does not stack up.
No, exactly right. And similarly, it wasn't interesting what then happened, because the police then issued some kind of dispersal order, and an order that was going to be in place for 28 days, supposedly, to say that nobody could demonstrate outside of the Britannia Hotel for the purposes of 28 days. For the length of time of 28 days. And then it turns out that a lot of people started asking questions whether that was legal. A lot of lawyers got involved. I think some MPs tweeted about it as well. And it turns out that actually they did get it wrong. And then they issued a sort of bizarre clarification to say, oh yes, we haven't banned protesting. We've only banned the people who we've banned from protesting, i.e. the people who were trying to cause damage at the hotel. So I don't think the police even know what the law is on that.
I mean, that was a shambles yesterday. I mean, there's clips of a policeman saying, addressing somebody who appeared to be perfectly peaceful. I couldn't, of course, see what happened before and afterwards, saying, that's it, you can't come back from here for 28 days. And the impression created was that nobody who attended that protest would be able to return for another 28 days, which begs the question, well, what if a whole different set of protesters come? Is that okay? What happens if the same set of protesters reappear wearing masks, like some of the far left thugs that we see alongside a handful of far right thugs?
Yeah.
It's complete and utter shambles. And I think the bigger picture here is that in his desperation to contain this kind of grassroots ground swell of opinion across the country, of frustration, this outbreak of frustration, Keir Starmer and the machinery of the state are having to resort to ever more authoritarian measures, such that we have people in crowds being told you are basically banned from protesting for another month. And this is the way things are going. We saw it as soon as Starmer came to power in the summer riots last year. That very draconian crackdown and crazy disproportionate sentences of supposed far-right thugs like Lucy Connolly. And we're seeing it again now. And, the government should be truly terrified when large numbers of women and children are taking to the streets in the way that they did outside that hotel in London yesterday. They're not far-right thugs. That narrative is no longer possible to sustain, and in fact looks increasingly like a joke.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's not just happening in one place, it's happening in multiple places, and with every week that passes, it will happen more. And of course, I can give you, if you haven't seen it yet, the first tweet of the day from Keir Starmer came out about an hour ago. I will use every tool at my disposal to secure our borders, it says. We are investing in our Border Security Command, extra officers and new technology to smash the gangs, putting lives at risk in the Channel. That's my plan for change in action. And I can't even tell you what the first reply to it is, because it's so rude. But I can tell you that every single reply underneath it is the same.
I mean, that is absolutely pathetic.
Isn't it?
I'm sorry. You had a caller earlier saying, we're not stupid. Really, using every tool at your disposal, Prime Minister? As far as I can see, you've used barely any tools.
Yeah.
You've used the lightest possible little, spanner to put in the works and make things worse, if anything, by continuing to offer the most astonishingly luxurious and discretionary accessories and other goodies for people that come into our country. He's not using the half of the powers that he has available to him. And I just don't understand why he thinks he can go on politically doing more of the same.
Yeah.
This is blowing up already.
Yeah, exactly. And he still has not addressed the cares and the concerns of all of those women, as you describe, outside either the Britannia Hotel or outside the Bell Hotel in Epping, or outside the hotel in Diss in Norfolk, or outside the apartment complex in Waterlooville. He seems to specialise, this Prime Minister, in hoping that if he sticks his head under the pillow, by the time he wakes up, it will have all gone away. But it's not going away.
What he needs to do is get out onto Downing Street and declare a national security emergency. And that is no exaggeration. Other countries are doing it, and probably with less cause than we have. He's got every justification to do that. All he needs to do, apart from anything else, is cite the Iranian terror suspects that the government made such a song and dance about arresting some time ago. There is a national security crisis, there is a national emergency, and if he stood on Downing Street, declared that, opted out on a whatever, I'd like it to be a permanent basis, but at least for this lot, they could say it's temporary, of those international treaties that apparently force us to accept anyone who comes in, and said, this is it, we're not doing this anymore. And anybody who continues to come over will be incarcerated, no more hotels, no more taxpayer-funded private accommodation. You are going to a detention centre pending your swift deportation.
Absolutely right. Incredible stuff, isn't it? Isabel, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor, as incredulous, I think, as we all are, at the way that this government is mishandling this particular crisis. They should be back in Parliament. They should be back answering to the public. They should be back answering to the opposition. They should be back telling us exactly what plans they have to stop the madness, to halt all of the crimes being committed, to make it sure that people can have safe lives in the neighbourhoods in which they've been living for years. Absolutely incredible. The other big story that we haven't really mentioned much in this hour is the discovery of a giant rat in Redcar, I believe it was, up in the northeast of England, 22 inches long. When I described it earlier this morning, I described it as 22 feet long. Which is obviously quite a lot bigger. I've got this from Stephen. He says, morning, Mike. Steve from Middlesbrough. The 22-foot rat was found about a mile away from me. What do you expect? They built a housing estate on an old wheat field with 3 becks running through them after building a massive Tesco and Aldi. Yeah, but hang on a second. I mean, it doesn't mean you could got them that big, though, surely to heavens. Nick says from Horsham, morning, Mike. That's not the biggest rat in the country. The biggest rat lives at number 10, and he goes by the name of Kia. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much indeed. Let's get a voice note from Jennifer.
Surely now, Starmer is neglecting his first and most important duty, which is to protect the British people. Surely he is neglecting that duty. He is allowing young, fighting-age men to invade this country. He is flooding this country with people that is unknown to us. Surely that's neglect of duty now.
And surely it must be. Jennifer, you're quite right. Jane says this morning, Mike, just seen Angela Eagle. She gave a figure of 12,000 regarding the amount of migrants that have been stopped coming over by the French police. What proof has she got? Is that something we could get from the Home Office? Keep up the good work. Well, it's a good question. They have said in the past that the French have stopped various different numbers of people coming, but they don't stop very many. And whenever they do stop anyone, they just go back and try again the next day. So who knows if the number is true? It probably isn't verifiable, to be honest. 25,436 have come since the beginning of 2025. That's what we do know on the migrant tracker. 22 minutes past 9.
keep hearing
that Lucy Connolly is a martyr who is in prison to somehow represent all of these people. She's got 20 months left in prison. I hope she serves every single one of them. She's exactly where she deserves to be. She's the standard bearer for the far right, and I think
Andy, that's outrageous. That is an outrageous suggestion.
I'm sorry.
How can you call someone a thug when not a single arrest has been made at Epping, at Waterlooville? You're calling people thugs, and actually what they're doing is protesting peacefully.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, 9:25, with you until 10, of course. Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here. One from Betty, who says, Mike, in Switzerland and most of the EU world, you can't claim unless you paid in, and if you claim, it's maximum 80% of what you put in and limited to 2 years, and then you get sent home. Why is this so hard for Labour? Nobody would disagree with something so reasonable. Absolutely fine. Deborah in Essex says, what a time we're living in. If the government hates us British so much, why doesn't Starmer set up a scheme to help those of us who would like to leave this country? The take-up would be huge. He could then be able to lead a country the way he wants without any interference. Just a thought. Yeah, you don't want to give up the country, though. Why don't we ask Angela Eagle whether she's got any ideas?
That is going to change soon when our French colleagues change their tactics. We have to change our tactics to adapt to the changing tactics of the people smuggling gang.
Yeah, OK then. Change the tactics, that'll do. Baroness Claire Fox is here, independent peer and director of the Academy of Ideas. The tactics are all wrong, Claire, aren't they?
Well, one of the tactics... Good morning, Mike, by the way. I'm joining in the outrage of all your listeners and viewers with another story, because actually I don't want anyone to think this government is being lazy, because they're really quite active. And guess what we've discovered? We've found out that there's a secretive disinformation unit at Whitehall.
Right.
And it's actually tracking, it's asking the tech companies to track and report anyone who is sharing concerning narratives, wait for it, concerning narratives on the asylum hotels and the issues of migration. So you could, this whole programme will be, listed, no doubt, after having listened to some discussion. But what's really disgusting about this is this National Security and Online Information Team was set up when they were worried about people being recruited by ISIS. And the idea was that they'd find out whether there was foreign interference and people trying to, put up those horrible, grisly beheading videos, if you remember. Anyway, it's aimed at jihadists. And they've now smoothly transformed the focus of who is the enemy to domestic people raising concerning narratives about asylum hotels. So in other words, the enemy is at home as far as this government's concerned, and it will go to any length in order to identify the enemy. And that's the public. I mean, that's what's so disgusting about this. They are actually quite active, the government, but it's just that they've managed to identify that the biggest problem are the protesters, or the people who are worried about safety, undocumented migrants and so on. We're the problem, not the... And guess what? At the meantime, the jihadists, those Islamists who actually do represent a real threat in this country, presumably that unit is not bothering with them because they're no longer a problem.
No, that's absolutely fine. And presumably a concerning narrative would not include the fact that there seems to be more and more of these migrants being charged with crimes, which obviously are alleged at this moment in time, which seem to be to do with children, which seem to be to do with young women. Which seem to be rising every single minute of the day. Because for them, presumably a concerning narrative is somebody like you or me being critical of what's actually happening.
Yeah, no, I mean, and you can see what happened. This all started around the Southport riot.
Yeah.
And they will say, oh, we're only doing it to protect people. But it's obviously then becomes extended into what are now effectively peaceful protests, which you've already discussed, so I won't repeat all that. But the genuine, heartfelt concern by local people about what's happening is now expressing itself, and right as it should do in a democratic society. But I think it is worrying that behind the scenes there are these shadowy bodies that are keeping their eye on us, that kind of surveillance. And we know from the recent acknowledgement of Prevent, Prevent, again, designed apparently to target terrorism, that one of the flags that can get you known as somebody who might be reported to Prevent is that you are involved in cultural nationalism. And cultural nationalism is where you actually are worried about the impact of undocumented, uncontrolled migration on the society that we live in. And if you express it, and of course that alongside the free speech worries that have arisen from the Online Safety Act, which are now effectively taking down harmful material aimed legitimately at stopping young kids seeing, extreme porn, is now being used to remove and take down legitimate political discussion. So I think there is a national crisis. It's a free speech crisis. Yeah. It's a democratic crisis. And I'm afraid the government are partly responsible for stirring it up, because this is the sort of thing which actually creates the tensions in the first place. It creates a suspicion of the state and of all its institutions, doesn't it? We all start thinking, God, they're spying on us.
Right.
We're the ones who are asking for help. People are saying, we're worried about what's happening at the hotel down the road. We're worried about what's happening to our kids, all this. And the government's response is, get that secret spying crowd onto them, see what they're posting online, get it removed, write their names down. And that's a very scary place to be in.
Make a list, exactly right. And also another thing which has really exercised a lot of people this morning and over the weekend is this story coming out of Nuneaton. Warwickshire Police basically saying that they deliberately took a view that they shouldn't reveal the ethnicity and the nationality of two men who have been accused and charged with the rape of a 12-year-old girl in Nuneaton, right? And they said they defended their position because they say they were following national policy in not sharing the ethnicity or immigration status of people charged with crimes, which clearly is a breach of our human rights as the public, and certainly of the press's right to know who is being arrested and charged with certain offences against people in this country.
Well, it's part of that whole narrative that they're trying to shape, which they actually admitted they were shaping in relation to the Afghan leak recently, where they said, oh, we can't let people know. We're prepared to completely abandon any democratic principles. We're going to have a super injunction, which means even Parliament doesn't know, because we're frightened that if the public find out about this scheme to bring in all these different Afghan citizens who we've no idea who they are. Some of them were obviously helping the soldiers and the British Army, but many of them we don't know who they are.
Well, we know some of them. We know some of them are in the Taliban, apparently.
No, I know. But we don't want the main thing is we don't want the British public to know, because we don't trust the British public. So my theme of this conversation with you now is that the government seem as preoccupied by the threat that public disquiet poses as they are about the problem, the genuine problem of national security, which is undocumented young men turning up on our shores. Nobody knows what to do with them. The fast track process, which I agreed with somebody, one of the voice notes, who said, what will happen is the fast track will be that you tick people through more quickly. And what is concerning all of us is that for all the rhetoric that's coming out of the government, like Angela Regal, nobody believes that they're going to tackle this seriously. And yet we, or, not me, but the public in general, are treated as though they are the problem. And that police story is atrocious.
Yeah.
They actually said, don't let the public know, because you know what will happen then. And it's like the public have a right to know.
Of course we do.
What's happening in their own society.
Yeah.
Of course we do.
But my worry, as I said, is that they're claiming that it's national policy. i.e. it's been handed down. I don't know if it's national policy for the police or national policy handed down by the government or national policy handed down by the CPS. We don't know, but it certainly shouldn't be national policy, should it?
No, and I think that at the moment we are not entirely convinced, any of us, that the police are clear what the law is, and that's because of confusion at the top. And we saw that with that section, what was it, 142 or 40, whatever it was yesterday.
Canary Wharf,
the ban for 28 days. The police officer did say you are not going to be allowed to protest here for 28 days.
Right.
he said this to, by the way, a group of people. Nobody knows how they'll stop those particular protests because they're all masked up, so nobody knows who they are anyway.
Right.
And therefore, it will effectively ban protests outside that hotel, whether they like it or not. They've put the scare tactics on. And then you find out, well, no, the Met puts out a clarifying statement. Well, the clarification needs to be directed at your own police officers.
Yeah.
And what we're not clear about, and I think there's a real serious problem here, which is that the police, and I'm not blaming them necessarily, are going to end up being a discredited force because policing has to be by consent in a democratic society, in a free society. But increasingly, the police are coming out with what people consider to be politicised, irrational, inconsistent views. And as you've pointed out about Nuneaton, is that the national policy? We have a right to know. When was that decided?
Yeah.
Is that democratically accepted? And if it's the case that it's a national policy, then the government needs to take responsibility for that. We need to know what's happening with the police. Otherwise, people are just going to see the police seemingly acting in a two-tier way. Because one thing, you know, that lots of people pointed out, and they were right to, in relation to that hotel ban of whoever it was, a ban for 28 days, is that for weeks and months, there have been very aggressive, lively, scary demonstrations passing by, for example, Jewish schools, and there have been Palestinian demonstrations calling for the eradication of Israel and so on, passing by synagogues and so on. And when you asked the police to remove them, the police said, oh, right to protest, mate. We defend the right to protest. Yet here we had the distress of some people in the hotel, which was given precedence over anything else in that exclusion order. So I think that all the time you just feel as though this is not a level playing field. And ordinary people's, if they lose faith in the police, in all state institutions, then that's a really problematic place. And I think that the government are not taking this remotely seriously.
And that's what happened in Essex, of course. You know, when we discovered that, you know, the Essex police had decided to escort members of a left-wing sort of trouble group to go to Epping to demonstrate against, again, another very peaceful demonstration by parents and mothers and kids and all of that outside the Bell Hotel. We then find out that the police have been doing it in Aldershot as well, and actually escorting people and using that claim that, you know, they have a right to protest and we'll take them there, even though they're all masked up and we don't know what they're going to do when they get there, and then we'll take them back to the police station afterwards. We then learned in Essex that the police chief in Essex has presided over a regime where at least one person a day is arrested for some kind of hate crime.
I know. The thing about the escorting them up the hill question is, of course, they've got the right to protest. You know me, I kind of defend even the most heinous people's free speech and their right to protest. I'm a big civil libertarian. I mean, you know, it's equal opportunities as far as these things goes, you know, even of the people I despise. But on the other hand, they don't necessarily have to be protesting right in the middle of where the other protest is. I mean, that's why they were escorting them up, to look after them while they arrived at the right protest site. I mean, if they want to protest, stand where you are, right? If you haven't, you know, protest there. You don't have to be marched into the centre of it.
No.
That doesn't make any sense from a policing point of view. It's obviously going to stir things up. So I think that I don't want to be completely antagonistic to the police, because I'm not saying that they're not doing a difficult job. The bigger problem is a political one.
Yes.
And that political problem has been created by a government that actually is gaslighting the public. I mean, Angela Eagle should be given the award for irritating the life out of the nation this morning, because she comes on and talks about it all calmly. No, don't worry, we're all fine. We've got this plan with the universities. We're doing this here, we're doing that. And everyone is like screaming at their radios. And by the way, it's not just talk, it's like all radio stations. And I think one of the voice notes made the point that, you know, even the BBC have started to acknowledge that this is a problem, that the migration issue is one of now civil disquiet. And the cabinet released their own minutes, you know, actually saying we might have a summer of discontent because of the migration issue. The problem is that rather than then confronting that by talking to the public like grown-ups and telling them seriously what they're going to do, they basically say, you know, don't you worry your pretty little heads, you know, you go home and have a cup of tea. No need for you to protest, because we've got it all in hand. We've got these measures which nobody believes that they will do. And in the meantime, which is why you originally asked me on, we find out there's a secret unit coming out of Whitehall. Civil servants are now highlighting that the biggest threat in relation to migration at the moment are public raising concerning narratives, as they say, about the asylum hotels issue.
It's absolutely incredible, unbelievable. Great to talk to you. Baroness Claire Fox there, independent peer and director of the Academy of Ideas. Ellie in Welshpool says, morning Mike, word of the day, tactic. Tactics, plural, an action or strategy carefully planned to achieve a specific end. I ain't seen any action. Let's get a voice note from Bickles.
It's the tactics, Mike. It's the tic-tacs, tic-tacs, tactics, tic-tac, tactics, tick... Oh, just let me in.
Yeah, tic-tac-toe. Shall we find out from Keir Starmer if we're ready for this?
We are moving to war-fighting readiness. When we are being directly threatened by states with advanced military forces, the most effective way to deter them is to be ready. And frankly, to show them that we're ready.
Yeah, he's really doing that, isn't he? We'd have to change the tactics, I think, if you want to show that they're ready. Are we ready for what? Ready to be humiliated, invaded, ready to be occupied, ready to have the complete and utter mickey taken out of your country? That's what you're ready for. Heaven's sake. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:42. I'm Mike Graham with you until 10, of course. Julie Hartley-Brewer here, taking you through until 1 o'clock. Back on Monday, the 4th of August, and my goodness me, it's been a busy show. Can't even believe where the time's gone. We're nearly done. But we're going to talk, first of all, before we go, about this giant rat that they've found, 22 inches long in Redcar, right? Unbelievable. We're going to talk, first of all, to Councillor David Taylor, Redcar and Cleveland Borough Council. David, very good morning to you.
Morning, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this thing. I mean, that would appear to be a human holding it in a bag, but it looks like the size of a small dog, or it's certainly, you know, a lynx or something like that. A cat, you know, not bigger than a domestic cat. It's huge.
Yeah, it's absolutely massive. I was really shocked when I was first sent the picture by a resident. I really couldn't believe the size of it. I mean, yeah. I've seen plenty of rats over the years, but nothing to that scale.
No. I mean, are there believed to be any more of them, and is there any reason why it got so big?
Well, somebody's who I've spoke to linked it to sort of a sewer rat that really, as we know, lives in the sewer and very rarely come up, but that's probably why it's got so big.
Yeah.
But there's the sightings all over Redcar and Cleveland. My host neighbours, councillors in Normanby Ward were forever getting complaints. residents, seeing them day and night crossing the street.
Right. Because, I mean, that's a big animal, isn't it? I mean, it looks the size of like a beaver or something like that. It could be certainly a reasonable, good-sized dog even.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
I mean, is it not some kind of health hazard if there's a lot of these things roaming around? Because, I mean, who knows what would happen if one of them bit you?
Well, yeah, I mean, regardless of the size, I mean, rats are a big health hazard, and that's why we're trying to put pressure on the council to join up with forces and try and, you know, have a big cull on these rats, because they're just becoming more of a hindrance for residents.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's more than a hindrance, isn't it? I mean, it's terrifying.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people are saying it's because the council are no longer paying for sort of pest control. Is that true?
Yeah, the council no longer pay for pest control. They just offer advice. The social housing providers, they're pulled out many years ago from doing the same. And so did the water board, I believe, as well. So it's just an ongoing issue, not just here in Wrexham and Cleveland, but I believe in lots of other places around the UK as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously a problem. We've been covering this story in Birmingham for a while because of the bin strike there. The rats were getting bigger and bigger just because there was so much more food around. Somebody was suggesting to me this was in an area where they've sort of levelled what used to be a wheat field and put some supermarkets and stuff on there. Is that an issue?
There's been a lot of development. There's been about 5 new housing developments in the area over sort of the last 6 or 7 years. So that's, you know, will have pushed rats more closer to the centre.
Right.
There's takeaway food. There's been a massive increase in fly tipping as well, which has helped. And one of my big concerns is when the council bring food waste bins in next year, it's just going to aggravate the problem, really.
Yeah, really. And this one was found in somebody's house, I understand.
Yes, that's right. Yes, I believe it. I believe it was just above the boiler.
Crikey! Imagine coming down and finding that first thing in the morning.
Yeah, it's not a good. It's not a good sight. Well, finding any rat, but a rat of that size is just enormous.
Yeah, I know. It's really scary. Let's talk now to Kristen Hems, who's pest interceptors. Knows a thing or two about catching these things. Kristen, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. How are you doing?
Yeah, good to see you. This is terrifying, isn't it? I mean, how on earth would you catch something like that?
Well, I mean, the fact that they've just found that lying there tells us that someone's been putting a load of poison down.
Oh, right. You think they killed it with poison?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, the chance of it dying from natural causes or old age doesn't really happen. There's so many people putting poison down. And the truth of the matter is, the reason it doesn't work, when you've got rats inside houses, right?
Yeah.
If you use poison and the rats go away and the rats come back again, the rats are coming from the sewer.
Right.
Okay. And when I say sewer, I mean via broken drainage, either at your house, one of your neighbours' houses. We travel all over the country solving these rats in houses problems.
Right.
And I promise you, it's 99.9% of the time, rats are coming from a broken pipe under the buildings.
So under the building and then into the building, not like coming up through the toilet or something, are they?
Well, that's a different subject because we saw something really scary last week down in London.
Did you?
So the reason rats don't come out of your toilet, right, is because of the U-bend on the back.
Okay.
And they only don't come through that U-bend because they don't know how far the water goes for.
Okay.
Now, the Victorians, back in their wise days when things was done sensibly, they invented something called the interceptor trap. Right, so the sewer, you have a pipe that comes up, it goes through a U-bend, it goes into your manhole and then into your house, right? And this U-bend there protects all the pipes upstream from the sewer.
Right.
We saw a rat fly through one of those the other day on a camera.
Wow.
And there's a thing with rats called conditioned learning. No one really understands how it works, but once one rat knows a trick, in other words, oh, there's only 6 inches of water to get through.
Yeah.
Well, all the rats will know it in a month or two.
Right. They're very intelligent creatures, aren't they?
And getting cleverer.
Yeah.
And getting cleverer.
Unlike humans who are getting stupider, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, the stupid thing, right? I mean, the country seems to be absolutely cursed with the stupid curse at the moment. It's like, does it really surprise people that rats are getting bigger when you think about what they eat? Walk down any high street and look at the general public of the UK nowadays.
Yeah.
Look at us 20 years ago. We didn't all look like this, waddling down the streets, stuffing our faces full of processed rubbish all day long. And think about it, right? The rats live in the sewer because it's secure and they've got a food source. Sorry if you're having your breakfast, but once you've had your breakfast, you flush that away. That's breakfast for the rats.
Yeah.
Now, if the rats are eating the same rubbish that we are getting forced to feed ourselves on because people can't afford good food, well, the rats are eating that. Look at what's happening on the high street to the general population. Why would rats be any different? They're just mammals like us.
Yeah, but to go from that to sort of that is something else going on, surely. I mean, that's not just getting a bit bigger. That's like exploding inside. 22-inch rat is about, I don't know, it seems to me to be about 10, maybe 5 times bigger than a normal rat.
Well, I mean, you are going to always have an alpha male. So every family of rats, and they're all interbred rats, right? Well, there's one, sorry for the woke people of the world, but this is where I mean, we see it on a daily basis, right? There's a family, all interbred, and at the top of that hierarchy is one alpha male, and he gets the first food and the first rumpy pumpy, right? So it's a good place to be if you're a rat. Now, he gets to eat more food than all the rest. What is the food that he's eating? It's highly processed, fat-filled, sugar-filled poop down in the sewers. Right. And then even if they are coming above ground and getting into the big piles of rubbish that are piling up in certain areas, well, what's in the bins? It's the same rubbish that you haven't eaten chucked in the bin. So they're eating just junk food and rubbish, and processed rubbish. And then add to it, Mike, let's add the other things to this. What's also going down the sewers? In the water, or the hormone drugs that everyone's taking, or the myriad of drugs that everyone's on. Instead of looking at people's diet, give them a pill, give them a pill. Where does it go? Down the sewer. What lives in the sewer? The rats.
Well, hang on, everybody's on fat jabs now as well. Is that not going to affect him? Maybe make it thinner again?
Well, we ain't even seen the tip of the iceberg on that, Mike.
Yeah.
Let's face it, I mean...
I'm not sure I want to see the tip of anything anymore after what you've just told me. I'll tell you what, listen, fascinating stuff. Kristen Hems from Pest Interceptors, amazing. And Councillor David Taylor, thank you, from Redcar in Cleveland Borough Council. I've never seen anything like it. Apparently it's all our fault the rats are getting bigger. Let's see what Angela Eagle has to say about it.
That is going to change soon when our French colleagues change their tactics. We have to change our tactics to adapt to the changing tactics of the people smuggling gang.
Yeah, time to change the tactics, definitely. Definitely, no question at all. Mike, yes, they have stopped 12,000, but those they stopped waited for the next bus service, sorry, I mean dinghy, and got on those. So really none have been stopped. Labour really believe we are actually idiots. Happy Monday, says Ingeborg in Leicestershire. Close the borders and declare a national emergency and then start deporting illegal arrivals who circumvented the official asylum seeker route. They are a threat to national security. Simples. Perhaps the toolmaker's son could use that tool in his power. Well, that would be good, wouldn't it? Don in Charleston says, Mike, now even the giant rats are leaving the country. Yeah, talk about giant... That's incredible, isn't it, that story? It's 9:52.
working age males, and sexually active males, might I add, are coming over to our country having no idea of either our laws or our culture.
And it must be, like, bizarre for them, because I get it, because they must see the way that we dress and the way that we women have a voice, and it must be bizarre for them. But the point is that enough is enough now.
Darling, I am making no excuses for these people. No.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to very nearly 9:56. Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here very shortly. I told you, Mike, they're as big as dogs now. Soon they'll be as big as donkeys, says Anne in Somerset. Crikey. Susan said, morning, Mike, my friend in Elephant Castle had a rat come up the toilet last year. Oh, God. Isn't that awful? Dreadful. Let's get a voice note from Pete on £100 million to smash the smuggling gangs.
Another 100 million to smash the gangs? How many times does he think we're going to fall for this? And then all this £100 million, who is it being paid out to? All this money that keeps going out to smash the smuggling gangs, right? Who is it going to? It's time they gave us a detailed explanation as to who's getting paid this money for doing nothing, because that's what's happening, isn't it?
I mean, it's incredible, isn't it? Really? Where are they finding this money from, and what are they going to do with it? Let's talk to David in Gloucestershire. Hello, David.
Morning, Michael.
Morning.
How are we?
Not bad, sir. What can I do for you?
Well, just very quickly, they said about, what everybody keeps asking, what's this all about? Why? What's the plan? Well, I know what the plan is. It's to control us all. With more, they're frightening the public, they're frightening us all, and I think they're using the whole thing as to use more and more draconian measures, to sort of push us here, push us there. Don't say this, don't say that. Let's shut down the internet, shut down social media. And that's what it's all about. That's what I really do believe now.
Yeah, but you don't think they actually meant to get into this position in the first place, though, do you? Because they probably didn't.
Oh, I do. I really do.
I don't think they can help themselves. I don't think they knew that it was going to get this bad, but it now has got this bad, and now they don't know what to do.
Well, he hasn't got a clue, has he? But we all know that. I don't think he ever did. But
who, Starmer?
Starmer, yeah.
Yeah, of course he hasn't got a clue. He's completely clueless. And he is, as everybody says, he's a liar. He gets accused of it all the time. Listen, great to talk to you, David. Thank you very much indeed. Here he says, from Natasha, final text. Starmer stated over and over when he came to power it would be country first, party second. He has done precisely the opposite. He seems to think the people of this country have nothing to do with his job as Prime Minister. There is that sense, isn't there? Julie Hartley-Brewer's here. Very good morning.
I mean, agree with all of that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, he's not interested in what we've got to say. He's not interested in what the public have got to say.
No, and again, I mean, it's just non-stop. It's like this morning about Cooper, announcement about, another £100 million boost. None of this, and we're going to prosecute people who put social media posts. It's always social media posts. And if in doubt, digital ID cards. No, you need to stop people coming here who've got no right to be here, and once they are here, they need to be interned, and then they need to be sent home or anywhere else.
Yeah.
I don't care where they go.
No.
I don't want them here.
Exactly right.
Is that an unpopular or minority opinion?
Not anymore.
But apparently it's probably far right or bigoted.
Oh, it probably is. Have you heard Angela Eagle this morning talking about the tactics?
I have had to put up with that, yes.
I'm going to play it one more time because it's our favourite clip of the day.
Go for it.
Go on.
That is going to change soon when our French colleagues change their tactics. We have to